Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. I'm here, at midnight because I'm on a new work schedule for the time being. So it's either 12 noon or 12 midnight, the only two real times I can stream. So Heather has agreed to stay up late. You got your coffee, you got your tea.
I got my tea because as soon as this is done, I'm going right back to bed.
Yeah, me too. I'm so sleepy. I was just telling my wife, I was like, oh man, why did I schedule a talk? I'm so sleepy. But I got to keep my channel alive and I got to honor commitments. So,
What I did was as soon as I got home from work, I showered and then I went to bed for like 4 hours and then I woke up so I could be here with you.
oh, where are you?
I'm in Ohio.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, I was gonna say, what is the time difference at 2 hours, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm in New
I
York.
think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's about 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, 12 midnight right now, so it's 10 there now.
Well, it's actually 12 now. So I guess not much of a difference.
Oh, so it's the same time. Okay, there you go. We're in the same time zone. I don't know. Time zones are weird.
I don't
I
know. I don't make the rules. I just live on this planet.
Yeah, that's why I always schedule everything for 11:59 because I'm going to confuse myself. Oh, if I say Friday at midnight, does that really mean Saturday at, you know what I mean?
I
So,
was thinking the same exact thing because I'm like, wait, he said midnight Tuesday. Crap, was that last
right.
night?
Yeah. So I confused myself. So I say 11:59 p.m. and that way everybody knows exactly. Maybe I don't know. Maybe people understand, but I don't. I need it spelled out to me. I said that to my foreman today. I said I need you to explain everything you want me to do. And I'll
Mhm.
do it. I'll do it with no mistakes. And I'll do it the way you want, but use the correct words. So
And by the way, sorry if I look like I'm looking off to the side. The camera's right here, but my laptop where I can see you is
yeah,
right here.
I
So
did that for a while too. So I have my camera right on top of my laptop, so I can face front. Yeah, that's that's fine. Like I said, we were talking before we went a little live. Last time you were on, you didn't have a webcam and you had an avatar, and you said,
I've actually had my laptop cam, which is pretty crappy, and then the internet went out and I had to use my cell phone.
"Oh, yeah." So, and I sent you a message just because I remembered you had an avatar. I said, just remember like webcam, and you're like, I didn't. She's so Heather said, I don't remember you being so insistent. It's always been my policy to talk to faces. Once in a while, somebody will make a big stink of it. One guy just I was like the more he refused to go live, the more I was getting a bad feeling that something I was being set up for something. So whatever.
Maybe he
But
just had a really bad zit that day.
who cares? We have conversations. This conversations are faced. This whole channel was created as a proxy because during COVID we weren't allowed to socialize and everything. So whatever. Bed's it. Look at this
Yeah.
face. I got an ugly face. I'm not hiding.
I always say to myself whenever someone tries to mock my appearance, well, at least nobody is coming to me for my looks. They're here for my blog, they're here for my comics. No one's here for my looks.
Ditto over here. Yeah. You know, I that's one of the things I've had some women creators on, and some who are known for looks. I never comment on it. I never play that game. I've actually like other people like made like a thumbnail for me, and I didn't use it because like I don't. Even if it's somebody I disagree with, I don't want to be like that guy's a fat loser. You know what I mean? Like I want to talk about like why I disagree with somebody, why I don't like.
Right.
But I try to keep like the only appearances I make fun of are my own. You know, I just don't like that. It's just I don't know, something I don't want to do. So you know, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm sleepy. So anyway, you made a comic and you're coming out with issue 3.
I
So
am.
so I think I missed number 2.
Well, number two, because it came out so early after number one with the campaign, and I have to do a little bit of an explanation here. So, with my first campaign for $2,000, I did hit that goal, but most of the money I raised came from my family and not from comic book buyers. I think I had like a very small portion of that from comic book buyers. And it's like, I don't want to start another campaign just for only my family to contribute anymore. So I'm like, you know what? I'll put the second issue with the first issue on Global Comics and hopefully gather more of a readership. And so by the time when issue 3 comes out, then people will be like, okay, I've read the first 2 issues. This looks like something I want to support. I'm going to go check out this campaign.
Okay, so that is there, can I get issue 2 on this campaign?
Yeah, I set up a couple of different tiers where you can get the individual books. You can get all 3 if you just never seen the series before. And I also have a special tier where it's issue 2 and 3. For those of you who got the first issue, but you didn't get the second issue, and here we are.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. You know, you got to have a catch-up tier. You got to theoretically, every campaign, more and more people are getting interested. That's the theory anyway. That's what we want, you know. So, and comic book people, they don't want to jump on an issue 7. You know, they want to start at issue number 1. Yeah.
Yeah, my boyfriend is finding out the hard way because he's starting his comic book collecting, and he's at the point, he's at that early stage where he's just grabbing anything that looks good, and he's starting to figure out, I have no idea what's going on in this story. And I'm like, babe, you're starting on issue 13. Of course you don't understand what's going on in the story right now.
Okay. First question, how old's your boyfriend?
He's 35. I think he's about to be 36. Yeah.
Because you'll see, once you get into your upper 50s, anybody below 40 could be 16 to 40. So you know what I mean? So I was going to ask, would he be interested in coming on and talking as a new comic creator, a new comic collector? I think that would be fascinating to just talk to somebody who's getting into the hobby.
I'll ask him about it, but I will warn you, he is like, he's kind of touch and go with his collecting, and he's also has a bad habit of buying the books, but taking a while to actually get to reading the books.
Oh, so he's a normal comic collector.
Yeah.
I have 18 long boxes of comics I haven't read yet.
Oh my gosh, my backlog. I'm currently sitting my laptop on some of my backlog. It's the entire Preacher series because I've started reading it years ago and I never finished it. And I got these a little while ago and I just have not picked them up yet.
I'm a big Garth Ennis fanboy. I loved Preacher. Preacher is, I remember when it first came out, I stopped reading it at issue 5. I said, this is just violence. You know, it was too much for me. And then something told me to go back. And there was like a $1 bin. And I think I got like the first 20 issues in a $1 bin. And I really ended up liking it. So I'm not going to spoil it, but it's there's 2 particular issues that legit scared the crap out of me. So yes, comic books can scare you. Like the page turn, the reveal was actual scare. Like horror seems to be like a weak point of comic books because horror is timing and music and atmosphere and everything. But man, Preacher has 2 scenes that are legit scary. Like you're gonna close the book in fear.
You wouldn't be happy to talk about a someone's certain special locker, would you?
The locker
In Preacher, the meat locker.
Oh no, I'm not talking about that. That was gory. But what issue are you up to? I don't want to spoil it.
I think the last, when I last dropped out of it, it was when Jesse was at the Vatican to save Cassidy because, you know, that whole
what
deal
issue
where,
number is that?
oh crap, I do not remember. I think I have the graphic novels, and I think it was in the middle of.
If you read the graphic novels, you wouldn't know but is it Jesse's childhood?
Past that.
Okay, so Jesse's childhood friend.
Oh my gosh, I did get to that. That was harrowing. That was honestly harrowing.
Yes, that was legit. And then a later issue. All I'll say is the stats. That legit scared the crap out of me. You know, like legit horror. You know, like laying in bed thinking like something wrong with Garth Ennis. But paradoxically, Garth Ennis also wrote like one of my favorite issue of all time is where Tommy Monahan, Hitman, meets Superman. I'll bring up your campaign in a bit because.
I read that too, and it's. Because a lot of people have this misunderstanding that Garth Ennis just completely hates all superheroes, and he does to an extent. But from one of the interviews, it's more that he's just really tired of them clogging up the comic racks, which to a certain extent I can understand that, because he was
Right.
more of like, he grew up on war stories, and he grew up on 2000 AD or 20, is it 2000 AD or 20,000 AD? I'm brain farting right now.
2000 AD, yeah.
Yeah, so he grew up on that stuff, and to just see the racks all of just spandex and capes, it annoyed him. But there was this one interview I watched when he was talking about when he was finally being brought on to write something about Superman. And apparently the guy he was talking to, I think it was like the editor, was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you are coming onto the book, because I'm so tired of all these comic book writers coming in and immediately reverting to like a 5-year-old boy when they're writing Superman." And Garth Ennis is like, "Well, I hate to disappoint you." Because
He
he
was
does have
he
he does
was
have that small little love for Superman.
well, first off, Hitman is probably my favorite comic book series of all time. It is if you keep the first 6 issues or so, I think they tied it into that really awful bloodline. So the first six issues, if you read the first 6 issues or dropped out, I don't blame you. But they leave him alone after a while, and he just hits the ground running. Like, once editorial leave. But this is a series. One issue is the Punisher. The next issue is like vampires. The next issue is Superman. The next issue is a bunch of guys just go out drinking and like get drunk and throw up on each other. It's like comedy. And then one issue is the most ridiculous story about a guy who gets a tesseract stuck in his ass and he's throwing elephants at people. It's so bizarre. And then the very next issue is Superman. And
that sounds like Garth Ennis.
yeah, and it is a wonderful story about the nature of immigration, patriotism. Why did you leave your home country? Why do you, like, he always says, like in this issue, Tommy Monahan, he's like, yeah, I'm a Catholic from Ireland. He goes, but I come here. He goes, and I don't care if you're a Protestant. He goes, we left that stuff. That's why we left Ireland. Because, and now we come here and we form teams of, oh, I'm an Irish Catholic and I don't like the Protestants. He goes, America's a land of fresh start. Leave all that garbage while you left. And it's so positive. And Preacher, you're not there yet, but it's this arc of Jesse Custer redeeming himself, becoming a good guy, and literally how America is the land of opportunity. It's so dark at the beginning, but he pulls that. But I mean, it was the perfect timing for me. I was an edgy punk rock college kid when I read Preacher, but I evolved with it. By the end of the series, I was like, oh, good, he's a good guy. But The Boys, which he wrote after Preacher and he wrote after Hitman, I just bought that because I loved Garth Ennis, but I don't know why. I just stopped reading it. I didn't particularly hate it or anything like that. And I just waited. All of a sudden, I realized it was over. Oh, it ended. I better read it now before it gets spoiled. So I just sat there, and it just made my stomach churn. It's just.
You can definitely. You can
I mean,
definitely tell when he has a bone to pick. You can definitely tell when he has a bone to pick. And if you want to really look into like Garth Ennis's views of Ireland and about the Troubles specifically, I actually a few months ago read it was like a part 1 and a part 2, but it's like his very first professional work called Troubled Souls, and the next one is a few troubles more.
Oh, I never heard these. I got to pick these up.
Oh yeah, the first one is played very serious, and you can definitely tell it is very indie. And if I remember correctly, the artist is the same one who went on to do Hitman with Garth Ennis.
Okay.
If I am remembering this correctly, but it's all about this one guy. He accidentally gets caught up with an IRA member, and he's basically blackmailed into helping him plant a bomb. And this entire comic is about the guy contemplating, am I really going to do this? And where is the line between justified violence and just full-on terrorism? And because it's like, yeah, the Irish did suffer a lot under British rule, but is it really worth blowing up a bunch of random and sometimes even innocent people just for your cause?
Right.
And it also has a very nuanced take of the IRA guy too, because he's not just a generic bad guy. It's later revealed that he also got tricked into this lie. And it's it's dark, but it's also a very nuanced look into the Troubles by an Irishman who lived right next to Belfast and grew up right next to Belfast.
My grandfather was an IRA guy. We have his wanted poster. You know, and it was when he finally came to America. He couldn't come to America. He had to become a Canadian citizen, and then from Canada he came to America. So it was like a long, slow process to come to America. But he wouldn't let my mother listen to the Beatles. Like anything British. He didn't. And then here I am, somewhere around 19, 20 years old. I was just like, but the IRA is just killing people like going to funerals. The IRA is just killing people going to church. The IRA is just killing people like, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
So, what I never met my grandfather. He died before I was born, but like his name was Joe Thunder because he was like a storyteller, and he would like do performances and tell stories. And while everybody was watching him, his acting troupe would wire up bombs and play, stuff like that. So his voice was thunder because there'd be bombs. And I'm like, oh, that's all cool and everything like that. But how many of those people would just check it out watching a show? They didn't, you know what I mean? Like not all of them. Go after the English, go kill the Queen. You know what I mean? If
And it's like, and Garth Ennis makes that point where it's like, it's understandable why everyone's angry, but is this really the way?
Right. What's the name of this comic? I'm looking it up right now.
It's called Troubled Souls. I had to go on eBay, and for both books I got them for $60 because they are it was a small print release from what I understand.
Troubled Souls, a crisis trade paperback. So there's not even okay.
And then there's A Few Troubles More, which is the sequel, and that one is just straight up a buddy comedy featuring two of the side characters from the first one. Oh. Okay. So it's like if it's interesting because they're basically two sides of the Garth Ennis coin. You've got the dark exploration of dark topics and just wiener jokes.
Yeah.
Because Garth Ennis has just a lot of really funny, immature humor, and specifically penis mutilation jokes. And again, it's like, dude, are you okay? Like, do you need to talk to someone?
Look what he did to her star.
Oh my God.
By the end of the comic, he looks like a penis.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's bald. He's got the scar on his head. His ears are cut off.
Mm-hmm. And I think
from all of Preacher is he grabs Jesse Custer and he goes, "My God, you've turned me into a homosexual."
Oh no, that's not Jesse Custer. That was his subordinate.
Oh,
because in that scene, he's like, hey, he told his subordinate, "Hey, get me a hooker," because he was like a sex fiend, right. And the dude he completely took these hookers' word for like a contact, just at straight value, not realizing that they were setting him up. And
right.
I'm not going to spoil it, mostly because it's not PG also, at all.
If you're a fan of Garth Ennis, he did what probably the best, if not maybe second best run of Hellblazer, John Constantine. And during this, John Constantine had a girlfriend named Kit, and she was Irish and, involved in the Troubles. And like that character was very personal to him. And then he did like I think it was a limited series or a one shot just called Kit. And it was her. And then they killed her off when Garth Ennis left because they didn't want anybody else to write that character but him.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
But if you know John Constantine, everybody involved with him dies at the end. That's his problem.
Well, most of the problems, from what I understand, because I have looked a little bit into John Constantine, a lot of the problems that he has are self-inflicted. From what I've seen,
not quite. The problem is that he's involved in demonic forces. And it started out a bunch of his friends, like for kicks, like shits and giggles. They're like, "Oh, we're a bunch of punk rockers. We're gonna get involved into demon magic," and they arrogantly thought they could solve an exorcism, and they botched it. And then all of his friends were like targeted by demons. So he
I remember that plot point.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I said he caused a lot of his own
Right.
problems.
And then all of those guys ended up dying because of their actions. That pretty much John Constantine, as the head of this coven, caused them all. So he was suffering a lot of guilt. But like if the quickest, and it was like the ends justify the means. If killing you saved the day faster, quicker, and ultimately like nobody else died, he would. But he wouldn't pull the trigger. He would like talk you into like walking off a cliff or get you to do something that you didn't real. You know what I mean? He was just a manipulative, fascinating character. And then I haven't read anything since there was 300 issues, and that was the last issue of Constantine I ever read, because I now he's young and bisexual and cool, and he's casting light bolt spells. I liked his subtle magic. You know what I mean? Like sometimes he didn't even have magic. Sometimes he was just a con man.
Yeah, because my first introduction to John Constantine, like actually reading him in a comic book, because I have seen him in media before, but actually reading him was actually an Alan Moore Swamp Thing where he debuted.
Alan Moore created that character, yeah,
and he came off as just the slimiest bastard.
yeah. Absolutely, he was supposed to be unlikable, but so unlikable that you kind of liked him, like a lovable bastard. And that's and then he just had that 300 run series, just phenomenal writers: Jamie Delano, Garth Ennis, Warren Ellis. It was just like Mark Miller, just like a who's who of all the edgy, cool writers of the time. Really good series. Same with the Swamp Thing.
I have only read the Alan Moore run because I'm basic like that, and it is
nothing wrong with reading the best Swamp Thing run of all time. I'm a big Alan Moore fanboy. I still am. I know people poop on him these days, but you're a girl. I'm going to say something sexist to you right now. You know the crazy to hot ratio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Alan Moore is allowed to be crazy because he's such a good writer. Mark Waid, you get away with something, but not as much. But like
with the sole exception being Lost Girls.
I haven't read it yet because everybody warned me against it, and now
I've read the synopsis, and it's like, dude, why the hell did you think this was a good idea?
Yeah,
I'm going to subvert all your favorite childhood characters, like Alice from Alice in Wonderland and Dorothy, and I'm going to make them all have lots of sex and get raped. And it's like,
oh, I didn't know there was rape involved, but
yeah, I read the synopsis, and especially with what happened with Alice, and it's like, I do not want to read this. I feel like I get put on a list for reading this.
Yeah, I'm looking over there, but it's upstairs. Upstairs, all my hardcovers. It's still in the shrink wrap. It's like with the slip case and all nice. And I'm like, I guess I'm not reading this, but
it's put in the shrink wrap for a reason.
Yeah. But like I said, there was this weird period, like in the late '90s, where everybody was making pornographic comics. Like one of my favorite comics of all time was The Elementals. Bill Willingham. He did like elemental sex specials, and it was one thing to have like a topless girl on the beach or something like that, you know what I mean, or somebody's putting on their pants and you see their butt, but these were full on porn, and then he did a couple of others, like Coventry was like a little demon that would like basically rape women and then eat them, and it was supposed to be a comedy. It lasted 3 issues. Then he did Ironwood, which was Ironwood. It was fantasy, Penthouse Forum. I never thought this would happen to me, but I fell in love with the Centaur. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? But everybody was doing it. There was like a whole swath of like porno comic, and then boom! Not only do we not mention them, but like we revile them and make fun of them. You know what I mean?
Do you think some of that might have been because of the crash in the 90s, and that was just their way of trying to get more readers in?
Good point. Yeah, but nobody even remembers these comics. But good point. That I don't know. I don't know. I'm thinking there was like a zeitgeist. There was just something in the air, and they all, because comic books are, in movies too. I mean, we had Deep Impact and Armageddon at the same time. Star Wars comes out, and the next thing you know, everything's sci-fi. Conan came out, and everything was sexy barbarians. So I don't know. Was it just like a weird zeitgeist? Was it? Was it shocking?
Maybe.
Because it didn't sell very well.
Well, because frankly, who wants to open up a comic book looking for a comic book adventure and it's just everybody's having sex? Like if you are specifically looking for a superhero story and
Go
it's
to
like,
Kickstarter. That's what everything is on Kickstarter right now. It's
yeah.
AI generated porno comics.
I mean, it's like if you want a porno comic, fine, but if you're it's like when you go to a restaurant and you're like, "Oh, I would like the pastrami sandwich." And then they come out and it's just a giant heaping pile of meatballs and it's like, I mean, this is good too, but I really want that pastrami.
I don't know what's going on, but like I said, like people like Bill Willingham is one of my Grail guests. I've been a fan of his since before he even did comics. He used to do work for the role playing game Village Vigilantes. That's like a big part of my comic book. So I would just love to talk, and it's funny because I will talk to him about his role playing stuff. He did the advertisements for Dungeons and Dragons back in I think the late 70s.
Ooh,
So
that's
I'd love to talk
interesting.
about all that stuff, but I'm dying to ask him about like what was with the porn comics, but I think he would just like click off or something. Alan Moore did it. I'm trying to think. There was like a whole wave of like, and Image did it for a while too, but but this was later. Then they had like Sex Criminals, and then just the comic called Sex. And Sex Criminals was when certain people had orgasms, time froze.
I think I remember, I think I may have flipped through the first issue of that, but for me, it's like, why does sex need to be in here? Like, why does this even need to happen? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
It's like, okay, I did used to be a pretty big degenerate. I'm willing to admit that. And I used to have a bunch of like, not safe for work books, but nowadays it's like I feel it feels like unless there is an actual narrative purpose for a sex scene to happen, it's like there's no need to have so much random sex because at some point become desensitized to it and it's like
yep.
whatever. It's not even shocking anymore.
If I told you stories about me in the 20s, you eyeballs would explode. You know what I mean? Like we all have a pet, and I'm still not a prude. You know what I mean? I'll buy a comic if it's a booby book, but there has to be some sort of merit. Like I don't want to buy like a Tijuana Bible or these AI generated booby books that you see on Kickstarter. Like a comic book with nudity in it or whatever, it doesn't bother me. But
And I will say sometimes the over sexualization can turn off readers too. Like the big reason I stayed away from Common America for a little while is I saw the covers, I saw all of the fan art with her in the skimpy bikinis, and I just immediately like, okay, this is a guy's jerk off comic. I'm not interested in that. I'm just at Iconic Comics for the Soul Finder. I'll just skip that. And then I eventually did read it, and it's like, okay, this is not nearly as raunchy as I thought it would be.
Yeah, it looks raunchy. I haven't read anything, and I pretty much stayed away from it because I also don't like that fake anime look either.
Mm.
It's I, like real anime. I'm not I don't know much about the real. I used to say I hated it, but I realized that was a bad thing to say because there are really good animes. But
there are
the American fake anime and that style. To me, that's just like I don't know. Everybody's doing it. Like the guy that I work with, and he's a security guard. And he's like, "Oh, I heard you make your own comic." I was like, "Yeah, well, I write it. I can't draw it." And I'm showing him Renzo's art and everything like that. He goes, "I'll make my own comic too." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And he shows it, and it's the same thing as Common America. It's the same thing as it's that fake American anime style that everybody seems to be drawing. Yep.
Yeah, I get that.
My Jason Flappers. I wish I was that cool. I was never that cool. I wish I was that cool. 23 Skidoo. Daddy-o, I don't even know what the Zoot Suit guys even said.
People used to make their own moonshine in the bathtub.
My days, yeah. You kids with your Twitters and your social medias, but back to the nudity and everything like that. I remember watching Game of Thrones, and somewhere along Game of Thrones, believe it or not, a woman got naked. And,
Shocker! I'm
yeah,
surprised.
and it was like a prolonged sex scene. And right in the middle of that scene, I'm like, they didn't have to show any of this. Like, this is like, it just dawned on me like a light bulb. This is gratuitous. Like again, nudity in a movie, whatever. And then I started to realize 90% of all nudity in a movie is gratuitous. Like,
It is.
I recently watched the original 3:10 to Yuma, the cowboy movie.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene, the cowboy's beating the old widow and the whatever, and they look at each other, and there's this smoldering look because they're actually good actors, and they run and they kiss, and he just goes like this, and you see her shoulder, and as the shoulder goes down, it fades, and then the next scene, she's making coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I got it. They did what mommies and daddies do. They were making movies. I got the point. I didn't, and then I'm changing Netflix, all this, and it's just like a woman's riding on top of a man fully, like for like 3 minutes, and I'm like, this is just porn at this point. Like,
and I'm not opposed to sex scenes either. Like,
right,
my boyfriend had me sit down and watch Excalibur. We were a little high, so please do not ask me about the explicit details about everything. And in that movie, there is, of course, the sex scene between Lancelot and Guinevere. And it's not like super pornographic, but they both get naked.
It's tame by today's standards.
Yeah, it's tame by today's standards, but it's like, I'm fine with this because this actually happened in the lore. This is what broke King Arthur and broke Camelot, arguably. So it's like, yeah, I'm fine with this sex scene being here because it has a purpose to be here.
It wasn't that gratuitous. All they really showed was like boobs and you know what I mean, and abs. And
yeah,
I found the first sex scene with Igraine and Uther Pendragon, where he's got the plate mail on and she's just writhing on the table. That was one of the first sex scenes I saw as a kid, and I was like, I thought that was pretty graphic. I remember there was like in the news they would talk about how graphic that movie was, and then Helen Mirren as Morgan Le Fay was, revealing and everything. But you know what makes that movie even more disturbing?
What
is the dancer Igraine who, has sex with why can't I think of Gabriel Byrne as Uther Pendragon? That was the director's daughter. Yeah, that was John Boorman's daughter. Can you imagine directing your daughter in that scene?
I would have loved to have been on a fly on the wall when he told his wife, "Hey, honey, I'm decided to cast our daughter as this one woman who has sex on camera in my movie." I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that conversation.
It's a pretty drawn out, sex scene. Yeah, Heavy Bemis. I must admit I watched Excalibur while high. I told you Excalibur is one of my favorite movies. That I bought a replica Excalibur sword.
That's cool.
Yeah, this is a copy of the sword Excalibur from the movie.
I would ask you where you got it to get one for my boyfriend, but he has explicitly told me, do not buy me any swords because I would like to know like the metal involved in making it first. And he's very particular about his weaponry.
Yeah, this does have an edge. Like I if someone was to break in, I'd probably kill the first two people, but the third guy is probably going to get bludgeoned to death with a broken blade. But then again, I don't think real swords are that strong either.
I'm not an expert. Don't ask me about swords. But I think it depends on like how it's made, because there are certain swords that are made to break in a different way if they are to be broken. I'm not like a katana is not made the same way as the what's the one that the gladiators used?
A gladius.
Yeah, a gladius. They're not made in the same way, and the warriors would often just work around the weaknesses of the weapon with their fighting styles.
Right.
So,
are you a sword person? Do you know? Are you into this kind of stuff? Well, it sounds like you're into this kind of stuff. This
is the only blade I got.
Okay, because katanas, growing up, man, katanas just like if you had a katana, you were the coolest thing, and samurais can kill anybody. But I've been watching a lot of YouTube channels, and again, who knows? But like actual sword fighting experts are saying that like an English soldier with a sword could take out a samurai, because the samurai fighting technique is designed against another samurai. It's not very adaptive, and the story goes that there was a like a janitor someplace watching the samurais fight, in Japan, and he was studying them, and he said, I could beat them. And one of the samurais was like insulted. Oh yeah, do it. And he used his broom, and the samurai stood up, and when they swung, he just moved out and he hit the side of this katana, because the side was very breakable, and he snapped them, and then he just beat them with the broom handle. And he was undefeated, and then he became a master teacher and had the samurais adapted their techniques.
I was watching someone review this manga called Grappler Baki, and he referenced a different manga that was specifically talking about just fighting techniques and like different fighting styles. And that manga made the point that there is no like ultimate fighting style that will work every time, because each style has its strengths and weaknesses. Like you mentioned, with a samurai fighting another samurai, the style works very well because they're using pretty much the same techniques. But if you say bring in a knight, the knight has a completely different fighting style based off of his armor and his sword. So the knight is going to have certain advantages that the samurai wouldn't, and vice versa.
Right. The knight would probably have to kill the samurai fast because he's getting exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if you're familiar with Sandy Peterson. He's a game designer. He designed Doom and a bunch of board games.
Oh, okay.
He's if you don't follow him on Twitter, man, the guy tweets like 20 times a day of the most interesting facts ever. And I think he's got like a PhD in what is it called? Etymology, insects.
Yeah, that's etymology. Yeah.
So and then he designs board. He's just an interesting guy. He's going to come back on my channel. All I did was say hello to him, and he talked for 2 hours. It's great. Best ever. But one of the things that he was talking about, because he's been playing Dungeons & Dragons his whole life. I got to ask you, are you a role-playing game? Do you play role-playing games?
I like the lore and the look of a lot of role-playing games, but I don't play them.
Okay.
I tried playing D&D once in middle school, and I failed miserably because I had no idea what I was doing.
Okay, we'll get back to that. But he was talking about what we're talking about now. It's fighting techniques. And he says that studies have been proven that with spears, because you give a bunch of amateurs a spears, like, so you get 5 amateurs versus 5 expert swordsmen, the spear people win.
Yeah.
That the sword, it really is an efficient weapon.
The sword wasn't even designed for that. Like when it comes to wars and battles, people more used either arrows for like longer distance, or like you said, they would use the spear or something like that. The sword was supposed to be only for like close combat. It was never supposed to be your main weapon. I mean, heck, the Chinese, before they did their metalworking, they used bow staffs, and I forget where I heard this from, but sometimes the wars would get so bloody that the staffs would just like hydroplane on the blood. But yeah, it's like when the sword came around, they still used the staves because the staves were still useful.
Yeah,
in certain combat.
The Greeks used spears, spears and a hopple on the shield, and they had swords as backup.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first professional army that used swords, I think, was the Roman Legion, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was the Assyrians. I forget.
And even the Romans still used spears.
Right. They used it, and they had the gladius was the gladiator, and I forget the name of the Roman sword. It's not a gladius. The Roman sword was something else. The gladius is the famous one that the gladiators used because they wanted close combat.
Whenever I see those posts where it's like, which sword do you prefer? And they have a lineup of swords, it's like all of them look really cool, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of, okay, which one can I realistically wield? And it's always the rapier, because honestly, the rapier, it's lighter weight, and I feel like I can maneuver it a lot better than I could with, say, like the knight's sword.
Plus,
it looks so cool. It looks so cool, but it's like realistically, I have noodle arms. I cannot wield this thing properly.
Right. We with me and my friends, we would play Dungeons and Dragons all the time back in grade school. And my friend Carl's father was an archaeologist. And he would come back with the coolest things. Everyone's, well, of course, got incorporated. He came back with a sword, like a real sword from medieval France or whatever.
Ooh.
And we just were challenging each other just to hold it up for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? And you're like, because we started to like adapt the way we played the game. Like, you're getting tired. Like, we never thought of that. Fighting off 400 goblins and orcs. You know what I mean? Like,
it really puts into perspective.
Or just this basic look at, just because I love the movie so much. So if I got infinite choices of swords, it's gonna be the sword closest to this. A basic looking sword.
I think if I had a dream sword, it would be Inigo Montoya's sword from The Princess Bride. I really like that sword.
Yeah. And my second favorite is probably Stormbringer from Elric. Have you read those books?
I've read the first of the Elric books. That's just I think it's like the prequel novel, Elric of Melniboné.
Yeah.
And it's
a little by nothing book. It's quick.
And it's really cool and all, but I gotta say that ending just had me thinking, Elric, you are the dumbest bastard on the planet. Why the hell would you put your cousin, who has spent the majority of the novel trying to kill you, as the ruler while you're away? Why would you do that? Like, and his logic is, okay, once he has the sword of Damascus over his head and he realizes how crappy being an emperor is, then he's not going to want it anymore by the time I get back. And I'm like, you forget that your cousin is a lunatic.
Right.
Your cousin is a lunatic who wants to screw your cousin, i.e. his sister.
Yep. Yeah. Well, the Melniboneans, however you pronounce it, Melibdians, is that how you said it?
I think it's Melniboné.
Melniboneans.
Pronounce it like a French person.
Right. I always said Melnibone, and then they meet an old beggar in the streets in one of the future novels, and he keeps saying Melnibone, and he spells it Melnibone, Melnibone. So I'm like, maybe that's how you pronounce it. And he's just like, so I don't know, but I like the way you pronounce it. It makes it sound fancy. But
though I want to say, are you really willing to like sacrifice your soul and your sanity for Stormbringer though? Because the more I learn about Stormbringer, the more it's like, it's a cool sword and all, but I don't know if I want to wield it, because do you really want to wield a demon sword?
Right. It literally is a demon shape changed into a sword. Yeah, it's like a vampiric demon shape changed into a sword. And as he kills people, it devours their souls and then transfers power to him, because he's a weakling. And without the sword, he's like bedridden weakling.
And it's kind of interesting that he's sort of like the first of that trope of the soul-stealing sword trope.
He was a response to Conan. Like, how could I be the exact opposite of Conan? Like, he's a wizard. I love the whole, he wears these rings that were gifted to him as bindings for like elemental beings. Like, you are the king, so you inherit these. Like, it's not so much that you have the power, but okay, I'm calling you in because I'm wearing these rings, and these rings are symbols of our packs. And I just loved it so much. And I could keep reading them, because Elric, you think he does stupid stuff there. He does a lot of stupid stuff.
I think what I appreciate most about Elric is he is kind of a hot mess of a human being. Because I'm so used to modern media nowadays being like, oh, my character is wonderful. She's absolutely incredible. She never does anything wrong. And clearly see her like screwing up, but it's like, oh, but she has a plan for this. And it's like all the characters are perfect. And there's this weird like standard that readers have and media consumers have where your characters, if they're the good guy, they have to be perfect. Well, Elric is basically just the complete opposite of that. He's a hot mess. He does have a morality, but he still has the Melniboné spirit, where the Melnibonéans do stuff like torture and enslave people. But it's like he's trying. He's at least trying. And it's like, I appreciate the fact that you're not perfect, dude.
Well, yeah, they have demon blood in their ancestry. You know, when they made pacts with these demons and they interbred, so they're part demon. You know, um, but he tries to do good, because I remember Melna, I can't say it the way you say it, but I used to say Melnabone. I learned about it through my Dungeons Dragons books, and I went through like a 3 or 4 year period of reading everything from the deities and demigods. So I read Cthulhu, I read Fafton Grey Mouser, and everything, and they keep Elric as chaotic evil. That's his Dungeons Dragons alignment. And I just recently reread all the first 7 novels of the classic novels. Moorcock went back, and it's not quite the same. But the first 7 novels, except for the first book, where he's just, like you said, a hot mess, a crazy person, he actually tries to do good. But the sword makes him do bad things. You know, the fact that he has these pacts with demons, and you kind of feel bad for him, because he's just like, well, I got to start all over again. I messed up. You know, and then he finds Tanlorn, the city of peace, and he gets married, and he starts to have a family, and then duty calls, and he has to leave. Like, you start to feel bad for him. It's like, oh, poor.
Well, he is an eternal champion. It's not like he could just stop.
Right. Have you read any of the other ones, like Count Brass or Erskine or Hawkmoon?
I actually stumbled on Corum years ago. I got a issue 3, like one of those mini series where they were summing up one of the books, and it was of Corum, and I exclusively got it because I thought he looked really cool. But I remember really liking it, and I guess that's part of the reason why I want to get into more into the Michael Moorcock universe. Not only do all the characters look cool, but it's, I don't want to. Is it considered high fantasy? I can't tell the difference between high fantasy.
A lot of magic. Like Conan is not like Tolkien.
Conan's low fantasy.
Yeah, Conan is low fantasy. But it first off, those Corum comics, I didn't realize it, but those were Mike Barron. Those were some of Barron's early works, and I forget if you know, it started out with Pacific Comics, and then it was Eclipse Comics. I loved all of those. They had Hawkmoon, Corum, and then Mobius had Jerry Cornelius, who was one of the Eternal Champions. You know, Moorcock was really big into let's all like Lovecraft had like a shared universe with other writers, and Moorcock started doing that stuff.
I honestly had no idea how big the Moorcock like universe was until I looked into it, and it's like, whoa, this is way bigger than I thought. And that is another one that I want to get into, Hawkmoon. It's just because apparently Warhammer 40K took a lot from Hawkmoon.
I got to read I read. I'm so bad because there's 4 Count Brass novels, and I read the 3rd and 4th one first by accident. I didn't realize. I was like, oh.
Hey, you're better than me. I read Stormbringer first.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you know the demon. So I didn't. So
yeah, that's how I knew about it. I read the P. Craig Russell series of Stormbringer first because I recognized Elric, and I'm like, I'm gonna get this, and I had no idea it was the end. I had no idea that was the end book.
The Roy Thomas, P. Craig Russell, Michael T. Gilbert, Elric of Melnibone hardcover from Marvel Comics, and then later Pacific Comics. That was so good to the point I became a lifelong Michael T. Gilbert fan, and he did one of the covers for my comic. It's all from Michael Moorcock. So Henry Bemis says, I think the correct guess is Melnibone. I did not know that. You got to know. I got to learn something. And then Comics, yes, get Moorcock. It's been a joke since 4th grade with me and my friends. You know,
he must have had just the worst time at school with that last
name. No wonder he
name.
became a writer, right? Because just sit at home and write, because he couldn't go out and play with anybody with that name.
Yeah.
You'd think you'd come up with a pen name.
Well, Stephen King named his kid Joe. So you guess you could say that he was joking.
Moorcock is an unfortunate name. Yes, it is. Did you read Fafton Grey Mouser?
No.
Okay.
I did not.
Because talk about borderline. You know the meme, the writer's barely disguised fetish.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you do read those, be prepared. Apparently, what's his name is why can't I? Lance Lieber is into BDSM. So
I mean, with some of the weirdos that got into the comic scene, I'm kind of used to at this point and just accepted that a lot of art that I'm going to be consuming is someone's barely disguised fetish.
okay, did you read the Dresden Files?
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. I love the Dresden Files. He's a wizard in modern day Chicago, and he works alongside the police force, and I just love the whole mythology of it. It's so good, But my niece stopped reading it, and I don't see her point, because she was just like, yeah, the way women are depicted, and I'm like, the women are awesome in this book. But my friend Donna said the same thing, so maybe it's just something guys don't get. You know what I mean? So I was hoping you read it, so maybe you could articulate it to me.
It's possible. I don't want to rag on you men too much, but sometimes when you guys write women, it does come off either very strange or very much like, this is a fetish, isn't it?
Well,
Like
because
I don't want to rag on like Robert E. Howard, because I read some Conan stories, I read a lot of Solomon Kane stories, but when it came to the women, it's like, I think Robert E. Howard likes himself a dumb bimbo.
yeah, I read
I
one Conan story. I read a bunch of Conan comics, but I only read one story. I found him difficult to read, so I'll go back and try it out again. But
He was easy to read for me. But then again, I come from the last book I read was back in college, and in college, of course, you're reading all of these like highbrow stuff. So it's like it kind of turns you off from reading when you're forced to read stuff that you don't want
oh
to
yeah,
read.
I
So
took it.
that's why I've been into comics for so long. It's because there's pictures that goes with it. I don't have to read the
Yeah,
text.
I,
And I've only just gotten back into reading actual novels and stories with Robert E. Howard, with Moorcock, and I'm slowly getting back into that grind because they're better stories. I want to read them.
yeah, I gotta give Howard a second chance. I recently reread all the Lovecraft, and it's hard to say how he writes women, because there's no women in Lovecraft stories,
Well,
except
you
for,
know his opinion on other areas.
yeah. Guy's been dead for 100 years. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have the same. I give Lovecraft a wide berth, because the more I learn about him, my theory is he was an abused child, and probably a latent homosexual, and had a lot of
He
problems in his
he
mind.
come across as incredibly autistic.
Yes,
I don't mean to say that in a derogatory way. It's just, so in one of the Howard books, there is this there's this like in memoriam that Lovecraft wrote after Robert E. Howard unfortunately committed suicide back in the day. And they were pen pals and they used to communicate a lot, and the death really rocked Lovecraft. But when you read the in memoriam, it reads like a super autistic nerd who really likes this thing, and he is going to give you all of the information he has on this thing, so you know all the information and you will never forget him. That's exactly the impression I got
oh yeah.
while reading the in memoriam. Because
Have you read the what's the name of the Pickman's Model?
no.
It's one of my favorite Lovecraft stories, and it's Pickman who paints, and I don't want to spoil the twist ending, but the whole middle section is just walking to Pickman's house. Like, the main character is going to Pickman's house, and it's describing the arch roofs of all the houses, and how this window was installed, and these windows, and this chimney. It all could be removed. It offers nothing to the story, but it's that's like an autistic person just like, I'm going to talk about
Mm-hmm.
people joke about Tolkien, like, you don't like this tree being described, well, I'm going to describe it. Tolkien was never like that. Tolkien is such an easy read, if you ask me. It's so fun, and he gives you enough that you get the picture, but he doesn't dwell. Lovecraft is just like, all right, you talked about the arched gambrel roofs. over and over. And the funny thing
Or
is,
at the Mountain of Madness, where he's just going on and on and on about how weird the mountain looks.
right, 60 pages describing a bas relief, and you know, we sent this signal to here, and then we waited and sent the signal back. It's like, that's probably the way it would have been, but we don't need everything. Yeah.
That is something that I notice within my own writing, because I do tend to go on, and it's like, I don't want to come across this way, but you probably figured this out by now, but I'm a little on the spectrum too, so.
We all are, to the point the spectrum almost doesn't mean anything. Like, I was a little kid, I used to sit and rock. If I was reading, and I would sit and rock to the point my parents would tell me to stop.
I was the kid who was running around by themselves in the playground humming to themselves because I was off in my own little world.
Running, that was too much effort. I was too lazy to run. I would just rock back and forth. That's how I got my exercise. If I had a shirt with the tag on the back, so my mom would t-shirt, I would just freeze. And I was like, oh, she had to rip the tag off, and then I could move again. Like, just weird thing. Like, to this day, like, I have to eat my food in chronological order.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Oh, that we made that leftovers is for Tuesday. I have to eat that before what? It doesn't matter what I'm in the mood for. I have to eat the food because God forbid I throw out food. So yeah, I think us comic book people tend to be a little, like, I love bagging and bargaining and organizing my comics. You know what I mean?
Like counting.
With that, you like what?
I like counting.
You like counting?
Yeah, that's why I'm in inventory control now.
Oh, okay. You know what I find? Have you ever read The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay?
That's another one I have not read. No, sorry.
You got to read. It's one of my favorite books. It's so good. It's especially good if you're a comic book. But there's a comic book based on it, and in the comic book, these guys get the rights to make the why can't I think of the name of the character? The Escapist. That's the name of the character from Cavalier and Clay. So they're doing modern, and one of the guys just basically is autistic, but they never say, and he just likes to write. So he becomes the letterer, and he, we need to copy this font. So he would look at other people and just like copy fonts. I was always fascinated by that character. He's just like a big football player, and then sitting in class bored, he would just write, whatever he saw in the room, he would just copy down. Like, I don't know. I love that kind of stuff. Characters like that.
Yeah. Now I have to ask you something, because this is a suspicion I had while reading his books. Did you back the Steve Ditko campaign for the original Ditkoverse, or for the Ditkoverse books?
I have these. I have the original one, so I backed stuff that I didn't have, like the coin and stuff like that. But I have the original Ditko comics.
I'm okay. So I got them and I read them, and especially with Mr. A, it's like I got the very, very, very strong inkling that Ditko was on the spectrum too, like very autistic.
I never met the man, but there's when I first started doing this channel, I had like one viewer, and his name was Arthur, and he was an old timer, and we ended up talking on the phone and then going to lunch, and he was a woodchuck, and a woodchuck was a kid who worked for Marvel Comics at the time. So you'd show up at Marvel, and Stan Lee,
that is cool.
Yeah, Stan Lee would be like, "Go take this to Jack's house," and he would, and you would bring a paycheck over to Jack Kirby's house. He would give you a ticket for Long Island Railroad. You'd go to whatever Jack Kirby lived. I think it was Wyandanch at the time. Jack Kirby would take the paycheck and he'd be like, "Okay, now, here's the art for the Fantastic Four. Bring this to Stan." You know what I mean? And then Arthur would go back. So he was going to Steve Ditko's house. He was going to Gene Colan's house. That's what he was doing. This was the early days. It was cheaper just to give these kids tickets for the train.
Imagine them doing that nowadays.
Right. So, and they were like 12 years old, and then they would hang out in the office and like, "Hey kid, come here, color this." And they would color. "Hey kid, come here, ink this." And the guy would go and call his girlfriend, and Arthur's 12 years old, Fantastic Four. You know what I mean? And he met Steve Ditko plenty of times, and he says Steve Ditko would go to his car and walk around it 3 times, and then check under it, walk around, check under. You know what I mean? So he's saying that he was OCD. Like,
yeah, that I can totally see that. It's like, again, I'm not trying to be like derogatory. I'm not
Oh, no,
trying to put the man down. It's just, he's very creative and a very good artist. It's just you can very, very see his I don't want to say tendencies, but you can very much see his personality through his art.
I had a coworker that lived next door to John Romita Sr. So he told me
Ah,
conversation that, John Romita Sr.'s got to live somewhere. You know what I mean? Just happened to be next door to. So I was like, oh my god! And he's like, is he a big deal? I'm like, and he was a baseball fan. I was like, imagine living next door to Ted Williams. He's not quite Babe Ruth, but he's Ted Williams. He's like, oh my god, you want to meet him? So, long story short, I'm hanging out at John Romita's house.
that is so cool.
Yeah, so we sat there for hours and hours, and it's funny because Romita like anticipated my first question. Okay, so let me tell you about Steve Ditko. Like he knew I was going to ask.
Oh my gosh!
And so, like, why did Steve Ditko quit Spider-Man? And he goes, I don't know. And Romita was the guy who replaced him. He goes, that's between Stan and Steve. And I honestly think even Stan still doesn't know. He goes, but the theory is Steve had plans, and he made it very personal. Peter Parker looked like Steve Ditko, and this is what he wanted to do. And Stan, Steve would basically plot the story, write the story, and then give it to Stan, and then Stan would put the word balloons, and the word balloons changed what he wrote, and he was just getting more and more lividly pissed. But long story short, he would argue with Stan, like the I forget the name of the boss, the guy who ran the like Fancy Dan and all those guys. Why can't I think?
The Green Goblin reveal.
Yeah, the Green Goblin, but that was ultimately it. But everybody, all the villains somehow knew Peter Parker, and then for like 20 issues, they were hinting the Green Goblin, and they never revealed who it was because Stan didn't know who it was. And then they were like, "Yeah, it's going to be Harry Osborn's father," and Steve was like, "No, it can't be. This city's this big. It's logic. It makes no sense." And Stan's like, "Yeah, it makes no sense, but this is comics." You know what I mean? And I admire Steve Ditko. Stan was right in that particular case. It's more drama to make it work.
It is more drama, yes, but I see Ditko's point too.
Right, it makes total sense. What are the odds that I put on a mask and go fight, and I find out all my cousins are supervillains? You know what I mean? My girlfriend's father is a supervillain. You know, and my foreman's, owner of the company I work for is. It doesn't work that way, but that it does work that way in soap operas and comic books.
I got that.
Long story short, I agree with you. Steve Ditko is OCD from what I know about him.
Yeah, I was I used to stream a little bit on YouTube, and one of the things I would do is like go through the history of certain artists, go through their bibliographies. And when it got to Ditko, because Ditko was the first one I did, it was a suggestion. And when it got to the Green Goblin revealed, where it's like, for the longest time, everybody just assumed it was the Green Goblin reveal. That's the reason why Steve Ditko quit. And the first time I read them, like, that's not it. That cannot be it. And the more I read, the more I came to the conclusion of, okay, Stan Lee and Ditko have two very different perspectives on writing. And they were just butting heads constantly, and the Green Goblin reveal was the straw that broke the camel's back.
The final straw, yeah.
And it also didn't help that Stan Lee just refused for the longest time to even admit that, yes, Steve Ditko co-created Spider-Man.
Right.
Which is honestly really slimy on his part.
There's a lot of slime.
It's like, I do appreciate Stan Lee for everything he's done, and he deserves his flowers, but it's like, you really couldn't just say Steve Ditko co-created Spider-Man. You really couldn't say that.
Right. And then he said in a written letter, Steve, I always considered you the co-creator of Spider-Man. And then Steve wrote back, considered is what you do when you're thinking about something, not when you're certain. Like, I'm considering you for an Oscar. I'm considering you for that job. That doesn't mean you're getting the job.
And you can write
definite you co-created,
And you can write that off as Ditko being Ditko, but when another big artist, Jack Kirby, leaves for similar reasons,
then
I think we can say that Stan Lee is the is the problem here.
Right. Now, part of it is, again, I'm wearing a Stan Lee memorial shirt. So all my prejudice is laid bare. But like, how much of it was kayfabe and how much of it was like everybody and their brother knew Stan Lee, even if they weren't into comic books, and everybody benefited from Stan Lee's salesmanship and Carnival Barker and hello kids and blah 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 blah. Like how much money did Tom Ozosky, who the letterer at Marvel, make because Stan Lee became a household name? It's like in the NBA, nobody hit Michael Jordan because they knew people came to see Michael Jordan, and then everybody else got to buy houses and stuff like that, which was with the girl basketball, so she could learn, stop clobbering your star player.
It's the same with like Disney. Like we know that Walt Disney was not like the kind uncle like he portrayed himself as. But when it comes to actually running a business, and Stan Lee was good at running a business, you kind of need someone who's a little bit of a scumbag. Like,
right.
Let's be real here. Ditko and Kirby probably could not have run Marvel on their own. They're artists. They're focused on making the art. They probably would not have done a good job at running Marvel. But Stan Lee, he was a businessman. He will do what he needs to do for his company. He'll go against his artists to make the comic more exciting. He's going to do some shady things behind the scenes to make sure his company lasts. And
it worked.
Yeah, it worked. So I'm not saying that we now need to demonize Stan Lee. It's just
not at all. No,
he's a complicated guy. He was a very complicated guy.
In my mind, Marvel comic was at its pinnacle under Jim Shooter. The best comics, the best art, everything, and those guys hated him. Chuck Dixon tells that he went down to the offices and it just was the day that Jim Shooter got fired. He didn't go to the offices a lot. And John Byrne was a notoriously grouchy guy, but that day, John Byrne treated everybody to lunch, took everybody. It's Chuck Dixon like, yeah, free meal. Yeah, I'm going to go. And Chuck Dixon was like, I like Jim Shooter. He was the boss. He never had to yell at me because I did because Chuck Dixon is what I mean? If you give Chuck Dixon rules, he follows the rules. And he's just like, if you don't want to follow the rules, you shouldn't be working at this company kind of thing. So I think, that's one of the reasons why modern Marvel doesn't like Chuck Dixon too much, but I still love Chuck Dixon. But you got a bunch of artists, and they're all like under the Roy Thomas years, comics were always late, the deadline doom, and they were doing reprints. And, half the comic was drawn by somebody else because this guy wasn't fast. And then you had Jim Shooter was like, if a cat visitor, if Jim Shooter was just like, if this comic says we have to pay for the print, like I didn't know this. Marcus just told me that they paid for the printing months in advance. So if the comic wasn't there, you already paid. You don't get your money back. You know what I mean? You had to, and the newsstand would sue you if they didn't have new product to sell. This is a business. This is a business. This is a business. And Roy Thomas, as much as I love Roy Thomas, all those guys were just like, yeah, we're having fun. We like comic books. We're comic book fans. It's why crowdfunding comics are notoriously late. We're comic book fans.
Unfortunately, you gotta have someone there to crack the whip. Like, right. I'm sorry. I love a lot of the artists, and look, as much as you can say what you want about EBS, you will never hear me say he's a bad artist because he has really good art.
Yeah.
But someone has to get them in line, and that's what Stan Lee was. That's what Jim Shooter was. Yep. Someone had to be the big meanie pants to get all of the free spirits in line and doing their job. Yep. It sounds bad to say, but that's the reality.
Right. Like I'm a construction worker. Everybody hates the foreman. Every time I go to a new job, when a job finishes, we scatter to the 12 winds, and then we go on new jobs. Hey, how's this job? Oh, the foreman's a prick. Every job, what are the odds that the foreman's an asshole in every job? But foreman's got to be. You know what I mean? He's got 14 electricians who half of them are alcoholics. This guy's just got divorced. This guy just wants to get out of and coaches little league team. You know what I mean? Like they all got their own lives, and then he's dealing with the carpenters who are being rushed, so they want to finish up the wall, but don't put up the wall. We got to put in the outlets first, and and then whatever, the owner's yelling because we're spending too much money. What are you doing with all that? And the foreman's the guy catching all this crap. So I always give the foreman so much latitude, just like Stan Lee, just like Jim Shooter. Running a business is tough, especially a multi-million-dollar business full of comic book artists and writers. Look at Dan Slott. He's just like laughing. I'm like 3 weeks late on my deadline. Yeah,
that would not have flown.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and
How
that's the
write the comic book script. It is the funnest thing ever. You're writing about Spider-Man. You should be waking up. People should be pulling you away from your computer. Like I'm writing Spider-Man.
I mean, if I was paid for my work, I would be giving it my all. Like right now, I'm just doing indie stuff, and I'm pretty much just investing in my project. But if I was getting paid for my comic book writing, you bet your booty I would be getting that stuff done on time.
Yeah, and getting paid enough to like pay
live.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah. How fun would that? I also dread here being arrogant. Like, it's just imagine I made enough money with my comic that I could quit my job and live. Part of the fun would be gone because now I'm dependent upon it. Now I have to do it. Now it's, you know what I mean? Like now it's something I look forward to do. I'm going to write my comic. Oh, cool. Look at this art coming in. This is fun. But if it's just like, come on, man. Come on, Renzo. I got mortgage. Come on.
Yeah.
So I don't want that either. So that's why I can't wait to retire. And then I don't need anything. I just do it for fun.
Well, and also for me, it's like, I do love writing, but at the same time, I like being, away from my desk for a little bit. And that's part of the reason why I have the day job. To like be outside and talk to real people.
Yeah.
Because if you talk to your own characters for too long, you tend to go a little crazy.
I joke about this, but it's not a joke. I think most people who do comic books professionally for a living, they get a little weird. Especially now.
A little weird?
Yeah, like maybe in the 50s, like back in the bullpen days when everybody went down to the Marvel headquarters and there was 60 guys just drawing together and drinking and smoking. I picture like all that blue smoke in the air, and laughing and joking, and then going out and having martinis and then going back and drawing comic books. Those guys were probably like good regular men guys, working on their car. They were all veterans and stuff like that. They had wives, family. And now you got a bunch of introverts who grew up reading Spider-Man, love Spider-Man, sit at home, and now they're typing Spider-Man. Like their only interaction is Twitter or worse, Blue Sky.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? And is it any wonder that like we're finding out that all of these comic book people are freaks?
Yeah.
Like, thank God I got to go outside and deal with so many different personalities every day,
Yeah, it is really sad. Just I've had this discussion the other day, but I feel like social media has really ruined a lot. And I think that once you separate people, not just from other people, but from reality, and just have them sit in a cyber simulator, it just does not do good things for the brain. Yep. It does not do good things for the soul.
My wife and I have been talking about this for like the past month or so. Like, she was saying, do you think like they made like, why can't I think of these guys' names? The guy who made Facebook, that freaky looking android.
Oh, Mark Zuckerberg?
Like Zuckerberg and all these guys. Like, did they make social media as a means to control us? And I was like, I don't know. My theory is like social media was just made, and then immediately everybody jumped on it and used it as a way of social engineering. I don't know if it was specifically made to be social engineering, but I think the social engineers got on it pretty quick.
Yeah, I think with Facebook, at least, it was literally just for them to, see what their friends are up to. Right. That's all it really was.
Yeah, when I first got Facebook, it was just a nice way to keep in touch. Oh, look, my cousin built a shed. Oh, look, my other cousin had a baby. Oh, look, my nephew turned 12, And then it became, hey, look, I'm going to argue with people over politics, and then I got caught up in that, and then I stopped. Now I very rarely visit Facebook, I on Twitter, but I was up until COVID, up until Elon Musk bought Twitter, I was tiptoeing around. Like I'm on my third Twitter account because I got banned, saying the mildest political takes nowadays. Now I'm shocked by things that people are allowed to say. And I do think Elon Musk buying Twitter was one of the most important things of this century. It changed the nature of everything. Kamala Harris would be president. I would be giving my house over to Somali immigrants right now, if not for Elon Musk.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, on one hand, it's like, I can't believe all of you are this crazy and aren't allowed to have a platform. But on the other hand, it's like, you know what? I'm going to support free speech. Go ahead and announce how crazy you are to the high heavens so I know to avoid you. And I just know I have something to point at, being like, this I don't like. I don't want this at all. And I got a good dose of that over the weekend with what just happened with Charlie Kirk.
Yeah,
I attracted like 2 absolute crazies on my Facebook just for saying, hey, maybe political violence isn't good and we should not be celebrating this.
I love that these people, I don't want to talk about Charlie Kirk, but these people, we killed a fascist. It's like, yeah, I didn't know Charlie Kirk really before he died. I thought he was just like a Ben Shapiro. Like I put him in that same kind of smug, annoying category as what's his name, Crowder. Like that guy Crowder, I just can't stand him. And I thought he was just like, I got to go where people don't like me and make a jerk out of myself, because that's Crowder's whole thing. And I just lumped Charlie Kirk into the same category. Of course, he was killed. And then I'm watching videos and I realized I was wrong about the guy, and I didn't realize how big of an influence he had. I really didn't.
Oh my gosh, anyway, the videos of things in like South Korea, in England, and Spain.
And now I'm just amazed that people are just like, oh, let's have a debate. It's like, no. You killed the guy who's having a debate. You don't want a debate. I'm not falling for this twice.
You killed the guy who actually wanted to talk to you.
Right. Yeah. You showed your whole ass, you people. You know what I mean? Like, now, I don't know. My biggest fear is that nothing happens. That 3 weeks from now, we're talking about football and the latest Marvel movie, and Brie Larson's such a jerk. Like we got to capitalize on this anger and do something.
I also fear that more innocents are going to get caught in the crossfire.
Yep. I don't know. I like, come on, Trump, don't beat her out. Use this. Use this.
Investigate Reddit. For the love of God, please investigate Reddit.
Yep. But let's bring this back to your comic now. So, I mentioned COVID before. I started this during COVID, this whole YouTube channel, because I wanted to talk to people back when, being social was illegal. And then all my Democrat friends wouldn't talk to me because I wanted to hang out in person and play Dungeons & Dragons. I was just they're like, no, it's illegal. I'm like, it's not illegal. No, the governor said, the governor just can't make proclamations. We don't live in medieval France. You know what I mean? Like, let's come over. Let's play Dungeons & Dragons. Not until there's a cure. Okay, and then they got a shot. Okay, well, you gonna play Dungeons & Dragons again? Oh, did you get the shot? I'm like, what do you care? You got the shot. You're immune, right? Well, you got to get the shot. Well, you're immune. I could be coughing up blood right in front of you, but you're not going to get COVID because you got the shot. It's not the way it works. I'm like, then what's the point of the shot? And then we stopped talking. But anyway, your comic is about people taking medicine.
Yep. It's so the big gist is there.
And of course I hit the wrong button.
Yeah, so the main gist that's introduced in the first issue is there's this company called Gallon Inc., and they're trying to make this new medication specifically for like pregnant women and telling them, hey, take this, it's good for the health of your baby, blah, blah, blah. And the main character, Skylar, she, along with her friend Julian, they earlier on, before the comic started, they figured out that Gallon is connected to previous incident from when around the time when they were born, where their mothers took a similar medication, and it seriously messed them up mentally, but it also gave them super strength. And in this world, there are these people called Ragers, where they have all the super strength, but they're so unstable that they'll just pop off at random, and they'll get so angry that they'll rage out and cause destruction. Like, there's a new story in issue 1 where a guy just yoinked a fire hydrant out of the ground and chucked it because he was so mad. And so once Gallon announced, hey, we're going to make this new medication, Skylar's like, all right, we got to stop these guys before they screw up another generation.
Right. And for those of you who, I think it's topical, and I think this is a great premise. Does anybody remember and I know I'm going to say this wrong, the formaldehyde kids?
Yeah, thalidomide.
Thalidomide. I always say, for those, you remember back in the 70s, there was the flipper babies, which is really horrible to say, but what else? But
how else do you explain it? Yeah.
Yeah, they have like little seal flipper arms and seal like, and that was a drug given in the late 60s. Thank God my mom didn't take it. And it was supposed to help with like morning sickness or something.
It was like considered the wonder drug back then. And one of the things that they were marketing it for was morning sickness. But that was the big reason why the woman who was in charge of, okaying it to be brought into America was like, can we get some more information on this specifically and make sure it's not, hurting the baby? And she almost got laughed out, but she stood her ground. And that's the reason why thalidomide never made it to America. But yeah.
Yeah. So, and then like, because that's was one of the things I was talking about when the COVID shock came out. I was like, 6 months ago, this didn't exist. And now I got to take it or I'm fired. I'm like, how do I know this isn't going to like give me flipper arms? And people are like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, formaldehyde babies, Nope. I'm like, we've made mistakes before. Like, don't you remember when doctors used to tell people that nicotine was the greatest thing in the world? They used to prescribe heroin and oh, it's not like that anymore. Oh yeah, today we don't make mistakes anymore. The experts never make mistakes.
That is honestly one of the most deadly fallacies you can fall into.
Oh,
we've learned from our mistakes, and the experts would never make mistakes anymore. That is a fallacy that gets people killed. I'm not afraid to say that.
I remember one. I'm not going to mention the how this woman, but I remember her during the whole COVID thing walking around with a shirt that says, I trust the science. And I just wanted to beat her up. Like, science is not to be trusted. Science is to be constantly questioned. Like, wear a shirt that says, I question the science. That is what scientists do. Not trust. You don't trust. I don't trust gravity. I don't, it's like you learn about it, you experiment it, you test it, you challenge it.
And why even stop at the COVID vaccine? I've made this joke several times, but it's like, geez, with all these people who are on like SSRIs and are on psych meds, and they're still crazy after taking them, it kind of makes me wonder if the government is secretly continuing the MK Ultra experiments through our psychiatric meds.
Oh, you talk about language, now we're going into conspiracy. I love all that stuff.
It's like,
I've been saying since Columbine that I said, oh, they were on. I used to call them psychotropic drugs. Maybe it's the wrong term, but that's the term. SSRIs is the new term. But I was like, and then I've been following like a crazy person. Every time there was a mass shooting, every time there was a school shooting, except for gang violence. Gang violence is its own monster. But like any of these, what we call school shooters, they're all on these drugs. Every one of them.
mm-hmm.
And then that really creepy phrase pops up, known by the FBI, known to, and how many of them have like relatives that work for CIA or FBI? It's really, really spooky. Like
how many of them where the parents weren't necessarily part of the government, but maybe the doctors were in on it and they were convincing the parents, oh, your child has this, so we need to give you these drugs. That's what happened to Elon Musk with his one kid who was being transed. And the doctor's like, "Oh yes, we have to do this. It's for the safety of your child." And he went along with it because at the time, because it's like, well, if the doctor is telling me this, then they must know what's best. And now we get all this evidence now that a lot of doctors, they're not even really checking if people have the symptoms for like body dysmorphia before just giving them a prescription. And it does really make you wonder, is there something going on here?
Right. Not,
Are they intentionally trying to make us crazy?
yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then
And
mutilate ourselves, and and
now
now
I'm not saying that all drugs are bad. I want to make that clear to anyone listening to this. I'm not saying all
well,
drugs are bad.
hydrochloroquine seemed to be a good one. That's why they got rid of it and wouldn't let us take it.
Yeah. And there are like cases of extreme schizophrenia or bipolar disorder where medications can be
Right.
helpful. I'm not saying all drugs are bad. What I am saying is we should not trust pharmaceutical companies wholly. We should not trust the doctors wholly. Like back when I was a teenager, the doctor tried to prescribe me birth control when I was like 14 because I had bad acne. That was it. And the doctor was trying to push that. And my mom, who is a toxicologist and she knows all about birth control, just flat out refused to let me because she's like, my daughter's not ready for that. And no, I'm not doing this just for acne. And you need to do your own research into medication. You need to be aware of that. And because there are companies out there who will have, or not just out there for the money, they're doing it for an ulterior motive.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, I forget who said this, but they were like, okay, so you go to a doctor's office and you say, hey, doctor, I'm born a man, but I feel like I'm a woman. So they give you estrogen. Wouldn't it make more sense to give you testosterone to make you, well, you're biologically a man and you don't feel like a man. So let's give you testosterone, make you feel more like a man. But no, they give you the other one. Like a woman walks in, I don't feel like a woman. Give her estrogen. Like we do the ass backwards thing. No, you know what? You know what's going to help you? We're going to mutilate your genitals.
The thing that it blows my mind is apparently back in the day when it came to transgenderism specifically, there was a whole process. Like you had to go through psychiatric trials. They had to really make sure you were trans before they went along with everything, because majority of the stuff you have to do to transition from either man to woman or woman to man is permanent. Like
Yep.
you can't exactly just sew your dick back on.
Yeah.
But nowadays it's treated as, oh, you could just change your mind. Oh, it's okay. Oh, you can just swap out body parts. It'll be fine. It's just a one-to-one. And it's like, no, it's not.
I knew 3 people in my real life who transitioned now, and they transitioned 30 years ago, and all 3 of them committed suicide. My wife knows one person who transitioned, and this person still alive, but they're a basket case. They regret the decision. They want to go back to, started out. This is going to sound so sexy. Started out as one of the most beautiful women you'll ever see, and then turned into a mediocre man. Such a freaking shame. And now Mrs. Beatum, I got to say, the husband is a freaking saint putting up with this crazy person for 40 years of marriage, surgeries. I want to go back. I want to transit. It can't work. Can't do anything. It's just a basket case. Now
that is sad. That's another reason why I was so disturbed with all these cases saying it'll help with their mental health. And it's like, how about we make sure that's not something else first? I actually had to cut ties with a friend. He was a counselor. I'm not going to get too much into details, but he was immediately diagnosing one of his patients with a very rare mental disorder. And long story short, they got taken out of his wing and they went to a different doctor and they got just diagnosed with generic anxiety disorder. And it's like, okay, how about instead of assuming it's a zebra when you hear hoofbeats, we make sure that it's something a little bit more common, like a horse. And with a lot of these people dealing with body dysmorphia, it's not necessarily that they're trans. Sometimes they're just uncomfortable with their body, like a lot of girls and guys are when they're going through puberty. Like
right.
I sure as hell hated my body when I was going through puberty. I wish I didn't have boobs anymore because I hated the process. Everyone going through puberty has that body dysmorphia. That doesn't mean they're trans.
Right. Who was I just talking to this about it? But we just said that everybody goes through puberty, and for everybody, it's the first time. They don't know. They don't know what they're dealing with. Everybody's confused. You're angry. You whatever. You mood, men and women, and now you got these demons whispering in your ear. You're born in the wrong body, and it makes sense because you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And rather than just be like, hey, listen, man, this is called puberty. This happens to everybody. It's, your hormones are activating, you kick it in, you get horny for the first time, you can't deal with it, your body's growing a little too fast. Just tell them the facts of the matter. Everybody, you're not a special snowflake. Everybody goes through this. Abraham Lincoln felt like this. Obama felt like this. Trump felt like this. Robert Redford felt like this, and now you feel like this. It's your turn. Congratulations. You're not special, But no, you're in the wrong body. You're in the wrong body. I'm not even that religious, but this is evil to tell kids they have the wrong body. It's impossible. That's their body. How's it wrong?
They were literally born that way.
Right.
Now, am I saying that there are no people who are legitimately trans? I mean, there are very rare cases where the only way that they can ever feel comfortable is if they do as much as they can to look like the opposite sex.
I doubt even that, because that was all based on stuff from like the 1919s. You know what I mean? Like, and you're not allowed to question that. Like, and they still have high suicide rates. You go to places like Sweden or Finland, which are the most accepting for trans people, and they still have the same exact suicide rate as the United States. So I don't even think, legit people who transform, because like I said, 30 years ago, this girl who became a guy that I went to high school with went through the whole battery, the whole itinerary, still took his dad's service revolver and killed himself. You know what I mean? Like, what are the odds? All three of these people, they went through the whole battery. They went through years of counseling. They had to live as a woman before they trained, and then they're all dead. So I don't know if that helps. It doesn't help. If I forget what it's called, but I'm going to take your comment down. We'll bring it back up again. But there's a legit phenomenon. Like, some people get hit in the head and they wake up and they're like, this isn't my arm. And they're laughing. Like, I know it's my arm, but my brain is telling me this is not my arm. This is ridiculous. Like, I forget
that's
what
a thing.
called, there's a specific word. Like, they don't recognize this is somebody else's arm. So should we cut it off? It'll make them feel better. We'll swap out. No, nobody in there, but they'll cut off your balls. They'll cut off, sew up your vagina and take out part of your intestines. And now you got a smelly whatever, we do the most barbaric. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we're going to be like, oh, there was a million Dr. Mengeles running around.
Well, the conspiracy theory is that the reason why the medical community is super, super, super supportive of trans stuff is because you're creating patients.
Yeah, more patients.
Permanent patients who will take their meds on time, who will get the surgeries needed, and will always be needing to correct something because, let's be real,
it never ends.
It never does end. And that's the conspiracy theory. That's why, and that's another reason you shouldn't trust the medical industry completely.
Right. And we got to import the third world who are going to vote for more government assistance, and they have no concept of individual freedoms and individuality. That's a Western concept. We're not importing Polish people. We're not importing Czechoslovakians. We're importing Indians and Chinese and African, who are all collectivists, because that's big government.
Yeah.
Now this was another thing. I had like a almost heated argument with a new coworker, and he was like, "You see, in Florida, they're getting rid of all of the vaccine things." I said, "Good." I guess he didn't expect that. He was like, "What?" He goes, "Oh, Also, they can all get smallpox. I was like, smallpox has like been eradicated because it breaks out all the time. I said, yeah, because we're importing people from the third world who never had these shots.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Japan has no vaccine requirements, and they got the healthiest long lifespan of all. But they're an isolationist nation that up until yesterday, they didn't allow swaths of the third world to come into their country.
That might be changing soon.
Right. The Japan, come on, man, I'm rooting for you. Come on, man, we got to do so. I said,
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that they closed themselves off from outsiders.
Right. It's like, look at where we had this smallpox outbreak. I wonder how many Somalians just happened to be deposited in those towns.
Oh, do not get my boyfriend started on Somalians.
It's how many Indians just came out, and we don't know what their records are. Like, hell, we're putting 40-year-old men and telling them that they're 14 and putting them in junior high school, and then surprised when they're attacking girls. You know what I mean? So like, that okay, hand me the screwdriver. We just went back to work. That was the end of that conversation. But like, do vaccines cause autism? I don't know. Why is it so bad to question it? Something is going on.
Something is going on, especially with the medical industry. I don't know why.
Yep. Let's investigate everything.
Gender
it's gender identity disorder. We used to help these people realize they were beautiful the way they are. Now we tell them to go off body parts. That disrupts their psyche. Yeah, and they become violent and angry.
And I guess that was my point I was trying to get by earlier. It is a mental illness, and that's why I say I do believe there are people who are like considered transgender, because yes, it is a real mental illness. It is a real thing for them. But it's like, we should not be encouraging them to destroy their lives.
Yeah. Transsexuals are real. It's over. So let me clarify. Like, are you talking about like hermaphroditic people? Are you talking about legitimate people that like want to change their sex, transvest? So I can't.
It's the legitimate people that translate their sex. I'm not talking about the hermaphrodites. They are their own thing, and it's really infuriating that they're being brought in as, oh, technically they're a third gender. That means that gender isn't real, and it's like, no, it's just their genetics got a little screwy. Like that's all it is.
Right,
it's very much not a normal thing. Not normal as in they're an abhorrent abomination, but normal as in it's male or female. I'm sorry.
Right. And I always ask people, what gender is a pregnant mouse? When they don't want to say female. I'm like, well, how'd you know it was female? This is pregnant. So what gender is a pregnant human? Well, so it's not mental. It's physical. You know this. We all know this. We all pretend to know this, but we all know it.
The one thing I can never wrap my brain around is when it comes to transgenderism, and they're like, oh, you have to use my pronouns or else you'll trigger my dissociation or blah, 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 blah. And when it comes to trans men, that's women who transition into men, and then they get pregnant. Like, wait, you get triggered because someone accidentally called you she instead of he, or not they. How does getting pregnant not trigger your dysmorphia something fierce? Because getting pregnant and giving birth is the most feminine thing ever. That's what women do. And if you really want to be a man, why the hell do you want to get pregnant? Like, I've talked to men before, and while men will be like, oh yeah, pregnancy, like women having children, that's beautiful, and or they're at least like, it's so fascinating that women can grow a baby in their body. There is not a single cis man on this planet who wants to give birth. Like, if anything, if you try to go into detail, they'll just be like, what a wonderful day to have a penis. It's like, how does that not trigger your dysmorphia? As someone who wants to be a dude.
Trans people are real. Yes, it's a mental disorder. Yes, it's not normal. Correct, but they are real. So are schizophrenics. So do we give in to their delusions? If schizophrenics believe they're Napoleon, do we dress them up as Napoleon and pretend that they're the Emperor of France? You know,
I mean, that would be very funny
it
to
would,
watch, but
it would be good. Do it, you know. And I told this story too. I took this human sexuality class my first semester of college, and it was this this guy was just like the stereotype guy. Like he should have just been throwing confetti in the air. Hello, everybody! Yay! You know, like, and he just looked like a gay elf. You know what I mean? Like, and he just brought in the biggest cast of freaks to be the speakers in his class. I loved going to that class. It was just funny. You know what I mean? And even back then, I'm not susceptible to brainwash. Like when people tell me things, I back off. It's just my nature. But they brought in, back then they said transvestite. I don't know if that's the cool word anymore, but I'm going to use the word that they used 40 years ago, back when I was, you know, in first semester community college. And he was just like, it was a man turned into a woman, and he was normal. And, you know, and he was just like, yeah, I don't like talking about it. I don't want people to know. But you could tell, you know what I mean? He was built like a rock, but he was just like, you know, I try to live my life without people knowing. It's not something I'm proud of. And like, I could just be like, this is a person I can have a drink with, you know. And then me and my buddies, we used to go to the Pyramid Club in Manhattan, and it was a transvestite bar, but they would have punk bands playing there. We saw a lot of good punk bands. So it was really weird. You see guys with the big mohawks and then transvest, you know what I mean? And skinheads would show up depending upon the band. And these but they were drag queens. I don't know if I'm allowed to say drag queens anymore. The words are changing.
You are allowed to say drag queen now.
Oh, you are allowed? And these they were like drag queens, like Divine. I don't know if you remember Divine from the John Waters movie. They look like dudes in makeup, and they were, you know what I mean? And they look like bikers pretending to be women who didn't really give a crap if they could pass or not. It was really bizarre. And like we'd be drinking and talking and laughing, but like now transgenders are like, but this was before drugs. They just put on makeup and a dress.
I mean, there were drugs back then, but not the clinical
they were
kind.
doing cocaine and ecstasy, you know, whatever. But they didn't have these whatever hormone drugs. Now they're all violent and angry, and if you don't call them the right word, they're ready to pop off at them. You know, like I just felt like back then, before all these pharmaceuticals got involved, indulge this nonsense. You're not, you know, and if you like, you called them a guy or a woman or whatever the wrong name, they'd be like, "What do I look like to you?" And you'd be like, "You look like a freak," and then they would laugh. You know what I mean? But now you call somebody the wrong word, it's ma'am, and I think it's all pharmaceuticals just driving people crazy.
MK Ultra, man, they're still doing the experiments.
My best friend is trans. I met him when we were both 12. He told me when we were 16. I never heard of it before, never questioned. The decades later, they're suddenly everywhere. Well, I hope your friend is okay. Hope your friend is okay, Dave. You know, Maxie Zeus. You can't just dismiss trans people because it's mental disorder. Narcissism is mental disorder. Do we dismiss them? No, but we don't indulge them. I'm not dismissing them. They're real.
They are real.
We don't indulge them. You know what I mean? We don't indulge them. Like, do we, furries are real too. Now, do we let them get driver's licenses in their fursona? And you know, and do we have to address them as Mr. Kibbles? You know what I mean? It's like, you know.
By the way, fun fact, I think it was Divine. Divine is the inspiration for Ursula in The Little Mermaid.
Yep. Trans people are doing their thing, fringe widows, but the trans, yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah. It's to the, and my wife has gone through like a spiritual awakening. She's become very Christian. Matter of fact, she's going to some Christian thing to meet. I don't want to.
So that's what all the biblical streams were about.
Well, I've always been fascinated. I was an altar boy. You know, I was a Roman Catholic, and I'm a lapsed Catholic. I don't know what I believe. I used to be like a zealot atheist, but you know, then the zealotry kind of went away, and I was whatever. But like, I don't know what I believe. To be honest, I don't know what I believe. But I always been fascinated with the Bible, comic books, Greek mythology, like stories of the supernatural and divine. I've always been fascinated with. But
have you read the Kingstone Bible comics?
No. What are these?
I think it's Kingstone, but they're basically just comic book retelling of different biblical figures. So you have.
You send me a DM with the link or something. I'll definitely check that out.
I'll have to dig it up. But yeah, I think my favorite one was when they did Samson, and just because Samson's basically Conan.
Right. It's Hercules. It's Conan. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So I have to say, either the chick he gets with at the very end, who eventually turns him into the cops, either she had the finest ass in all of the old world, or Samson is the biggest idiot. Because how do you get the cops busting in on you several times and you're with the same woman and you're not putting two and two together and realizing she's the one tipping them off?
There's a few biblical succubi, Delilah, Jezebel, but the point I was getting to is like, I don't know if you believe in God or whatever, but right now, I said to my wife, I don't believe in the devil, but I believe that people believe in the devil, and I believe that people probably worship the devil, whether or not he's not. But it amounts to the same thing. It's evil, and these people are organized, and they're doing evil things. To me, that's the most compelling argument for the existence of God now. Like I'm doing it ass backwards than everybody else. Like if there's this, I don't know your beliefs. I'm not trying to make you feel uncomfortable or whatever.
I mean,
But
I could talk about them for a little bit.
yeah, but like, oh God, it's right now. It's like I think there's a lot of people thinking coming the back way around believing, because like this this is organized. There's no way this is like this zeitgeist. Like disco was just the zeitgeist. It just happened and it was gone. That wasn't social engineering. The destruction of the West, transgender, everything is this is organized, and like the governments can't hide it anymore. Look at England; they are blatantly against their own people's wishes. Ireland, France, you know,
it makes you wonder if voting in England even matters at all. Like, I was talking to Kyle Prometheus a few weeks ago, and I made the joke of, "Don't worry, we're not saying naughty words. Please don't put us in the ISO cubes." But it's like, no, they seriously just hate their own people, and it is bonkers. Like, if you seriously hate England that much, then get the hell out of England.
I firmly believe Prince Charles converted to Islam in secret. There's no, the guy, every slightly Islamic holiday, he's jumping up and down like a puppet. And then Christian holidays, oh yeah, Merry Christmas too. And
Yeah.
he's supposed to be the head of the Church of England. But I who did I say this to? But I said, vote better next time. And he's like, I wish he could, but I was like, what do you mean? And he started explaining the British way to get it's like an illusion. Like they don't pick, they pick a party, but the party decides who's going to be. So it doesn't matter who's going to become prime minister. It doesn't matter, because the same people are going to pick the next prime minister anyway.
I'm not going to say this is right, but at the same time, I would not be surprised come November 5th, someone finishes what Guy Fawkes started. I honestly would not be surprised, because at this point, the British are just fed up with their own government, and something's going to get blown up. Again, it's like, I don't want it to happen, and I don't want too many innocents dying, but at this point, it's like the government kind of has it coming at this point.
I think most governments have it coming at this point. My point is, trans people have no desire for the people that I was talking about in this class, and then maybe my college, my high school friends who converted back 30 years ago. I think they would be appalled at all this too, especially knowing how it turned out for them and how it didn't help. I have board games. My Rich and Dom, they're a married gay couple, and they make me look liberal. They are so conservative, and they hate all of this. When Charlie Kirk got shot, that's how I found out. My gay married friends told me, and they're like, "This is so bad. That guy was a good guy," and I'm like, I don't even, So the average queer, the average gay person, the average trans, I think they're just appalled about this. Like the legit people with legit problems, not the pervs who just want to go to the bathroom, or the attention seekers, or the brainwashed, the misled. Yeah, I agree. The activists jumped every. Yep. Can we get back to two genders and trans being fringe? Yeah.
I'd like to go back to that too.
Do you know? This is gonna play havoc on the language, but that human woman with two heads and two different names, and one of them got married.
Yeah.
I can't think of that poor two people's names. But whenever I say like, okay, there's more than two genders, it's on a spectrum. How many heads does the human body have? And then people are like, what are you talking about? How many heads does the human body have? One. Oh, so now why are you dehumanizing this Bethany or whatever her name is? There's two heads.
It's like they shouldn't be stoned for being abominations, but they should just be acknowledged. You are people too. You are
right.
just a very unusual case.
We everybody understands that that's an anomaly, and nobody says that the number of heads is on a spectrum, even though we do legit have a person, whether you want to call it one person with two heads or two people with one body, whatever. But we understand that the human anatomy is one head, two arms, 10 fingers. Albert Marvelli from my high school had 11 fingers. Do we say that the number of fingers is on a spectrum? We all understand, I went to high school with the girl who had 3 boobs and she had to get a breast removed. She legit had another boob underneath her other boob, So do we say that the number of breasts is on a spectrum? No, we don't. We understand that there's anomalies and there's, I don't want to say freaks because that's mean, but there's anomalies. We'll say medical anomalies. But when it comes to no, it's not. There's, hermaphrodites happen. That's not the way it's supposed to be.
The term that's going around nowadays is called suicidal empathy, whereas it is good to have empathy for people, but there comes a point where it becomes downright suicidal, where you're willing to sacrifice your own morals, your own needs, and basically anything that makes up you just to satisfy someone else's needs.
Right.
And that's what's been honestly governing a lot of Western society now.
The best example of suicidal empathy is the Next Generation, when Picard let you go back to the Borg Collective and didn't annihilate that race, which was a virus. Are you a fan of Star Trek? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I've watched like 3 episodes in my entire life.
But the Borg was a artificial race that's genocided other races.
And the cube ship thing that they got?
Yeah, I got the cube ship right behind my head.
Yeah, the cube ship thing.
One of them, and they freed him, and they made him an individual, and they could have used him to implant like a suicide bomb and take out all the Borg. But now you is an individual, But the Borg is a disease. The Borg is basically leprosy, and everybody gets lepers, and you know what I mean. And we have a chance to. Well, I'm sorry, we got to kill all the lepers to get rid of the disease. But that was suicidal. When you said that, that's the first thing I thought of. PB, do you agree with me? You watch Star Trek. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Look at. Oh, black people can't vote. They don't know how to get driver's licenses. Like, oh, we're gonna help them. We're gonna lower the standards so they can graduate high school. They're doing so bad in school. It's suicidal empathy. It's just, we're going to release them from jail now. We set them up for failure, and then when they fail, we don't keep them in jail, and then we no consequences. Now that woman's killed on a train, and that guy 15 times.
That video was absolutely just horrifying to watch. Yeah. She was literally just minding her own business.
Right.
And then the dude got up bragging about what he did and then tried to backtrack and say, she called me the N-word. And it's like, no, first off, no, she didn't. And secondly, even if she did, she didn't deserve to die over it.
No, we stopped teaching sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Like somewhere when I was in high school. I mean, have you even heard that expression?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you got nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. Or if I went bonkers with just my Twitter comments or some of the comments I've gotten, I would be a school shooter by now. Like, if that is all it would take to set people off the edge, it's just mean comments, I would be a school shooter by now. Everybody gets mean comments. I get called I'm ugly. I get told I'm a bitch or I'm a bigot. Over the weekend, one of the crazies that commented on my Facebook said, I deserve to go to hell just because I said it's not cool to say it was a good thing that Charlie Kirk died. Like, people say mean things to you on the internet all the time.
Right. The internet.
People will say mean things to your face all the time. It happens. That's the consequence of living in a many splendored world. Sometimes you'll get nice people, sometimes you'll get shit people.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
It doesn't mean you kill anyone who
I'm
either annoys you or disagrees with you.
starting to think that diversity is not our strength.
It isn't.
But you know what is our strength? Comic books.
Yeah. Back to the point of us being here in the first place.
Right. So your comic book, first off, what's the title? What's the title?
The title is Next Evolution, and this is Next Evolution number 3.
Right. And I love this concept that people were given experimental drugs, told they were safe, and they had horrible consequences, and they want to do it again. I think it's an important comic. I was really excited when I read this.
And in this issue, the 3rd issue, one of the subordinates does give an explanation for why they're doing what they're doing. I say an explanation because, you know, there's the explanation that they give, and then there are real reasons revealed later on. But in this comic, there is an explanation.
There's the back. I'll back when we're off screen. Nobody needs to see my credit card information, but there you go. I'm sorry I missed issue number 2. When we reached out to set this up, I was like, 3? What happened to 2? But yeah,
it's on Global Comics. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. You got to do what you got to do. It's funny that you said, because my first comic, I had a lot of friends and family all excited I was making a comic. And you said you had a lot of friends and family back you. Did you have to explain what crowdfunding was to them?
And they still just more donated amounts of money rather than getting a perk. So it was interesting trying to get them to understand the concept of crowdfunding and how it works in the comic book sphere.
Like my construction worker buddies, they were all excited that I was making a comic, and they're all opening their wallet and handing, how much is it? $10. They're all handing me $10 bills. I'm like, oh no, you have to go to this website. You have to go.
Yep, I've had that too.
And they were like, nope. And I remember my foreman was just like, so let me get this straight. I'm going to give you $10 plus $10 shipping when you're standing right next to me, and then in 8 to 6 to 10 months, you can't tell me exactly when you're going to mail me a comic book. And he goes, you know what? I'll buy it. I'll buy it when it's. Is a tough.
It's an unfortunate side effects of crowdfunding where it has such that reputation now. Thanks, EBS.
Well, I said that, and when I said that 3 months ago, I said, no, I don't understand why we're going after Rippaverse when this guy does nothing but deliver. Whether you like the comics or not is irrelevant, because the people buying his comics like it. I don't like Pepsi. I'm a Coca-Cola guy. Me going off on Pepsi, the Pepsi guys are just like, what is wrong with you? I'm drinking Pepsi over here. Leave me alone. That's the way I look at the Ripper. His fans like the books. They're getting the books. And enough's enough. I said, stop going after Ripper. What we need to do is we need to keep us. We are the ones. And when I said that, I considered myself Comics Gate. I said, we are the ones that need to gatekeep. Rob Hunter just defaulted. Jamie Reyes just defaulted. There's Tommy Sawyer has this comic called The Magicians or whatever. It's been 7 or 8 years. I haven't gotten it yet. I could go back to Indiegogo for 9 years, and I could probably come up with 12 crowdfunded comics that I never got. I said, I have people telling me, John, I like you, I like your channel, but I'm not going to back your book until it's shipping.
That's why I made that announcement on X explaining, look, the book is done. The book is done. So you don't have to wait for us to complete it. It is done right now. I know on the website it says we're like a certain percentage done, but no, it is completely done right now. Because I get it. I get that the anxiety people have, like, am I going to be getting my book? Oh, and by the way, while we're here, Zach, your boy Zach, hi. I still haven't gotten all my add-ons. I can't do a full review on Jawbreakers if you don't give me my add-ons.
I'll give you a review of Jawbreakers. It sucks.
The first book was really good.
Was good.
And I didn't get my add-ons yet. I was late on getting the rest of the series, but I got the latest book, and I'm reading it, and it reads like he had a script, like 2 different scripts. He accidentally dropped them in a blender, and then he tried to piece together a script, and it's like,
What got
what is this
well, first
story?
off, he directly attacked me, because I dared respond to Thinking Critical's video on Yellow Flash. But what got me was all these people bragging that their books are on time. Well, your books read like they're on time, unlike mine that are 6 years late and still are unreadable.
It's like, that's not a flex, dude.
Right? Yeah, his books are garbage. I like the first one. I have to say I like the concept of iron sights, but it's unreadable. It's not sequential art. It's a bunch of panels and a bunch of words that you really, really have to difficultly put together. His best stuff was written by Chuck Dixon. Rock and Roll Ninja was awesome. I
It
can read
is.
it. I can follow it around. It's a complete story. The art is great. Matt Bauer just goes nuts. Chuck Dixon goes nuts. Makes a good book. But all the Jawbreaker, the first Jawbreakers book made sense, but it was an underwhelming story. But every other Jawbreakers book, unreadable. This Grand Bazaar, no sense whatsoever. So I got real mad at that. I was just like, you're gonna make fun of other people for having their books on time. If you're gonna make that claim, you got to be untouchable, and your book makes no freaking sense. It's awful. Unlike your book, which is awesome. I really like your comic.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
thank you.
glad that I missed number 2 because that means I got a lot more to read.
It's sad because it's like, I don't want to completely get on these guys because first off, these guys are like 20 years older than me. Oh, I'm a 30 PB, but these guys are like 20, 30 years older than me. And I guess it completely shattered my concept of, okay, you're older, you understand the business a little bit more, you understand how this works, and so I have a little bit more faith in you. And these guys just act like complete teenage boys when it comes to both making comic books and the business angle. EBS is the biggest like offender of this. First off, that whole like war campaign thing, I learned about that last year, and it's like, and we get on the industry for their blacklists, but with your boy Zach just going absolutely AWOL on people for just the mildest criticisms, it's like, you guys are my dad's age and you're acting like you're younger than me. What is wrong with you people? Like, you should know better by now, especially since some of you worked in the industry and you know just how bad being unprofessional can look.
Well, these guys would have been the ones going out to dinner with John Byrne when Jim Shooter got fired.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They don't want. And Olu Femi says, "Surely you don't consider yourself Comicsgate." No, I'm embarrassed that I was ever interested in Comicsgate.
I used to like praise Comicsgate, but once I figured out all of like the dirty stuff that they've been doing behind the scenes, I can't support it anymore because it's just a Mean Girls clique. It
Right.
really is.
It's no different. Your boy Zach for years was talking about lists of whisper networks. It's the same thing.
It is.
And EVS is talking about this guy's not my ally. They use the same SJW language. I don't want allies. I want friends.
Mm.
I have no use for allies. What ally do I want? I'm a guy who makes comic books and plays Dungeons and Dragons in my basement. What the hell do I need allies for? I want friends.
At the very worst, I want a coworker, someone that I can easily work with. I don't need someone to kiss my ass all the time. I'm just going to provide the best comics I can. And Martin has been doing such a great work on the art. And like the covers he does for Next Evolution are absolutely gorgeous. Kyle Prometheus called the cover for number 3 the Cathedral cover because it kind of looks like a stained glass windows.
I hope the covers aren't on here.
Oh, that is the cover. That's the cover color. But it's like, I don't need someone to kiss my ass all the time. If anything, I appreciate criticism. Like Mike Barron got my book, called me up and gave me his criticism of my book. And he was very nice about it too. I appreciate the criticism because you can only grow from criticism. That's why I don't want a brown noser. I don't want an ass kisser. I want someone who likes what I do and wants to help me improve.
right. Mike Barron called me up too. Like, he sends me a message, give me your phone number. So I give him my phone number and he calls me up. We talked for a good 40 minutes about my I'm like, Mike Barron, this guy's a freaking legend, but back to the Comicsgate, when it was a bunch of like I quit Marvel and DC in 2015. And then very soon after that, I got Diversity Comics. I got caught up watching this video. And I started hearing from Captain Cummings and all those other guys about Comicsgate. And I thought the name was embarrassing. I hate all of that gate stuff. It's just, come on, guys, drop it. It's gamer.
It is teenagery, yeah.
It's old hat. Come up with something new, but whatever. But I like the whole idea of the consumers are reacting. The consumers are reacting. I thought that was something important, so I got into it. But once it stopped being a consumer movement, now it's a brand. It's not the same thing. So I'm not into Comicsgate as a brand. And Comicsgate, the fan movement, is long dead. So no, I'm not part of Comicsgate. I'm not part of the brand. I don't want to be part of the brand. That brand is an albatross around your neck. It'll lower your sales. And now they're calling themselves trashies. They're not comic book fans. So why would I be Comicsgate? And I'm sure I'm going to get clipped and be made fun of, but whatever.
EBS is looking for anything to prop up his views at this point. Again, yeah. Ethan, if you do find this stream, you are a good artist. I do genuinely like your art. It is legitimately beautiful. But my God, you have got to get yourself together.
I don't think he could draw anymore. I think that medical episode he had a while ago, I think he could medicate himself long enough to draw on a draw stream with the graybeards or whatever, but I don't think he's capable of drawing anymore.
That's sad.
That's I based that just on my gut feeling. Otherwise, the books would be done. It doesn't take 5 years. Even if you drew one page a week, it would be done.
He used to work for DC. Like, he used to turn out work at an okay pace. Like, I heard that he had some problems with turning work in on time back then, but it's like, he used to work for DC. He knows the drill.
Yeah, and he personally spreads lies about me personally. So I know he's a liar. So I care. So I'm at the point now. I started saying it, and then I stopped because whatever. But like, I used to be like, if anybody, this new Comicsgate, and I can't support anything Comicsgate. Can't support anything. Like, that's just my blanket policy. If you are bragging that you're Comicsgate, I can't support your book anymore. It needs to die. Needs to go away. It's an albatross. It's actively hurting crowdfunding, not Rippaverse. And I'm not saying Rippaverse were the best comics either. I don't get Ripper comics. I didn't like ISUB, but the guy's doing the right thing. He's selling comics to his fans who are rabidly buying this stuff, and he's producing more stuff. Why is that wrong? I don't like Pepsi either, but they're not doing anything wrong.
He's giving the product. He's giving them the actual product on a consistent basis.
My buddy Mike bought the high tier Cyberfrog where you get the head sketch.
Yeah.
When his kid was born. Kids in kindergarten now.
He still didn't get it?
Still hasn't got his head sketch.
Oh my God.
Yeah, EBS gets super chats to not make comics, spend that money. You're right. Every day that he's drawing and not is it because he already got the comic book money. That's already gone. So super chat, that's his income.
That and the royalties.
And the DC movies aren't gonna whatever. The superhero, we're gonna go back to westerns. I think the next big movie trend is historical movies. But you know what? Now I see that Odyssey, and that looks like hot garbage. So maybe that's gonna end it before it even starts. Have you seen the trailers for the Odyssey?
Not the Odyssey, but I do hear like apparently they're getting a musical together called Epic that's about the Odyssey.
Oh God!
Like the Odyssey is weirdly making a comeback. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, what's his name? Nolan, the guy who did the Batman movies. And
Christopher Nolan's doing it?
Christopher Nolan's next movie is the Odyssey. And it's just like, Let's starring a cast of people who have no business being in the Odyssey. Like Zendaya is like Circe or Penelope or something like that. It's like, knock it off.
Dear.
And I'm one of the few people that think Zendaya is attractive. I think she's a genuinely beautiful woman, but she's a terrible actress.
She has a good-looking girl. It's just I think people are sick of her.
Right? Yeah. Thank God. For all I know, Pedro Pascal is in that too. But I just
I do not get why so many women are falling for Pedro Pascal because he looks gay. Like,
yeah.
For me, when it comes to like certain men, I'll immediately put them in the can't boink them, don't even bother ogling them. One is a character from Soulfinder, Father Patrick Rutter. I do find that character very attractive. However, it's like, okay, he's a priest, so I just immediately put him in the don't ogle space in my brain. And that goes for gay men for me too. It's like if I know a guy's gay, it's like, all right, I'm not going to even bother ogling you. I'll ogle Chris Hemsworth all day long, but I'm not going to ogle someone I know is like off the table for me anyway. So it's like
I love
Pedro
that word.
Pascal.
I'm just amused by the word ogle. We don't use that word enough. Ogle is a great word.
But it's like with Pedro Pascal, he's so obviously gay, and I was like, why are all you women just being obsessed with him? You can't boink him.
And he gets anxiety, and he has to fondle beautiful women, but he doesn't fondle that creepy looking girl from The Last of Us. He doesn't get anxiety around her.
Nope.
I would love anxiety that I had to fondle beautiful women. You know what I mean? But it's just so bizarre. So
get a medical thing from your doctor.
Why would you not even try? I just tried the others. I got Alpha Core. I enjoyed Alpha Core.
It's written by Chuck Dixon.
Right. Mike Barron sent me a copy of Goodyeing. I liked Goodyeing. And I forget who is mailing me a copy of the Great War of Separation, because when he backed it, he was sent like 2 copies. And July said, give one away. So he's giving it to me. My main reason why, something just flew in my eye. My main reason why I didn't get them was ISOM was $35 and I didn't like it. You know what I mean? And $35 is a lot for a comic book. Yes, the prices have come down. So I will be giving the Rippaverse a second chance now that they got their prices to come down. But
I think my biggest criticism of ISOM is I do like the story, I do like the character, but it doesn't read like a comic book. It reads like a TV show or a movie, not like a comic book. It's hard to explain this without sounding like a crackpot, but it's like comic books have a certain flow to them in the reading that you can't get with short stories or movies. And I'm still learning that flow as a first-time comic book writer, because you read the first issue and it's like, okay, yeah, she kind of gets it, but there's certain areas where she needs to improve on.
I thought you did a good job. Like, my big thing is storytelling, and at no point was I confused. Your art serviced everything. It wasn't super wordy, and you left me interested enough that I want to get the next issues. I thought you did a pretty good job. Is it greatest comic book ever? No, my comic book's not the greatest ever either. But for a first effort, I thought you did a really good job. I'd like to think for my first effort, I did a good job.
I think you did, yeah.
ISOM 1 was July's first attempt at a comic book. Now, what ISOM did wrong is what I was doing wrong before. I had friends who read my script and told me what I was doing wrong. ISOM was unfocused. It was too many characters. So here's ISOM. First off, I don't know what ISOM means. It's a terrible name for a superhero, but that's the hill I'm going to die on. ISOM is a terrible name for a superhero. It means nothing. It's a nonsense word, and therefore the superhero is unfocused because the superhero name defines the superhero. And when the word has no meaning, the superhero has no meaning. You know what I mean? It's Bloodrock Man. Well, what does that mean? Well, he's a cool character. Well, his name's nonsense. So let me get that out of the way. But what happens is ISOM shows up. We meet his sister. Then we meet Larry Shug Knight. Then we meet this guy. It's too much, too fast. It should have been laser focused, just ISOM's story and a villain. First issue, that's it. We learned Not
You're
every,
not gonna like the rest of Isom then.
you know what I mean? But it was like, here you go. It was like a everything pizza just thrown at you. You know what I mean? Like, I just wanted pepperoni. You know, no, you get mushrooms and but you know what I mean? It was too much. It was too much. Too many characters.
Yeah,
Too
you're not gonna like issues 2 and 3 then.
because the name of
Because they introduce a new character into and they get off the plot a little bit to fight demon monsters for some reason. Still don't know why. And then 3, a few more characters are introduced. That's like, okay, can we please get back to figuring out what the hell happened to
the name of
Jasmine?
the comic is Isom. It's not the Justice Society. And you know what I mean? And keep it focused on one character.
It feels like
Cyberfrog is about Cyberfrog. Superman's about Superman. Spider-Man's about Spider-Man. And once we know enough about the character, then you can introduce other characters. You know, but that's what I always do with Heroic Tales was the world. Like, did you read Godlike? That what got me so mad was he was like, "Oh, writers are a dime a dozen," and yeah, well, you should have handed somebody a dime to rewrite the script. But it was just, here you go. Here's the grand universe and everything like that, and this from the history from the beginning of the world to the end of the world and all these prophecies. Blah, blah, blah. But who's the main character? What's going on? Why should I care? Like Harry Potter, we focused on Harry Potter's stupid little problems with his adopted, and we learned, and then we found out that there was this grand world and a prophecy. And by the time we knew all of that, we knew about Shacklebot, and we knew about Neville Longbottom and all these secondary. We cared because we cared about the world, because we cared about Harry and his journey. That's what Isom. It's like Isom started with book 7 of Harry Potter, and we never got to learn about Isom or get a connection with him.
Yeah. I feel like he's building up to something. Like he's really trying. It's like he's releasing all these different movies to give you all the ideas and the backgrounds of these characters for a big crossover team up, like with the MCU, or for the Zack Snyderverse. And it's like, but these aren't movies, they're comic books. And with comic books, yeah, you do have to take a little bit more time to get the character, build up the tension, but that's what makes it so fun as a comic. It's not given to you all the way. You slowly follow the main character's journey. Like, my theory is that I think a big reason why a lot of fans will never be satisfied with the Spider-Man movies is because Spider-Man was never supposed to be told as a movie. Most of the character progression is done over a longer period of time.
Well, that's a big problem with comic books, taking a 50-year progression and then picking and choosing the good stuff and making a movie. That's why the movies will never be comic book accurate.
Like trying to have Green Goblin in the same movie where you're being introduced to Electro, you're meeting two characters who Spider-Man met at two very different points in his life. And with the reveal of Green Goblin especially, that happened later in Spider-Man's life. So it's like, you can't just condense all of his character development into one movie because it happened over a gradual period of time. It makes more sense for Spider-Man to be a TV series. And it was made into a TV series several times over, and they were fine.
Yeah, I agree. I got to address this again. The Patriarch is a father. That name goes against it. No, it doesn't. The Patriarch is a father figure, not a literal father. The Patriarch is a father figure. He's the most experienced, beloved superhero who sets the standards for the way superheroes behave in my world. He's also a father. He's also a leader of a community. And yes, he has telekinesis. What does that have to do with being a father? Well, he uses it to protect and defend, which is what fatherhood's supposed to be. I mean, to have the power to impregnate every woman in his town would probably be more fatherhood, but that ain't gonna happen.
I think people would have some legitimate criticisms for your comic book if that were the case.
Spider-Man, he sticks to walls. He shoots webs. He has spider sense, which spiders don't have spider sense. You know what I mean? Like Mr. Fantastic, he stretches. The Patriarch I'm going for the philosophical. He's a father figure. He's a leader. He's a protector, and not so much a provider. Well, he provides for his family, but he doesn't really provide for the city. But if someone doesn't like what you like, no, I mean, obviously I'm wrong. Obviously people like ISOM, so I guess I'm wrong. You know what I mean? I can't deny reality. It's selling. You know, there's people who said Godlike was a good comic. You know, so obviously I'm wrong. So we keep talking about your comic and then going off on tangents, but that just means we're having a good conversation.
We are.
Yeah. So, laser focus on this. You know.
All right.
So Next Evolution.
Yep. So the reason why it's called Next Evolution, or
no, just tell us about your comic. You know, in a world gone wrong, where the drug companies are.
So our main character, Skylar, she is one of the Ragers that I mentioned before. And she has a little bit more control over her issues. I mean, she still has her outbursts, but she's also very strong, and she is a very good fighter too. And when you open up in the first issue, she's mostly going around doing odd jobs, and she's basically just crashing in her friend's, Julian's, apartment. But they're working together to build up more evidence about what Gallon's been getting up to get more of the community to help them take down the company, because the police department is understaffed. They can't focus on everything at once, and they're still dealing with the Ragers who are actually going insane. So they're just slowly trying to build, I guess, a party of allies, or at least trying to get more people on their side. So it's like, okay, we need to take down this company. We're going to beat the bad guys that we can defeat with our fists, and we also need to figure out a plan of how we are going to stop these guys completely. And there's in the second issue, we get more of the character Detective Anderson and her whole deal too. But it's basically Skylar is working with resources that she has to take down a multi-billion pharmaceutical company, which is very much a mountain to conquer, but she's willing to do it because she got screwed over, a lot of her friends got screwed over, and the world has just become such a worse place ever since this company decided to just basically use the public as their petri dish for their experimental new drug. And the reason why they're doing this, it's kind of revealed in issue 3, but yeah. I'm sorry, I'm getting really tired.
Yeah, me too. I gotta wake up and take my wife to the airport in the morning. But I realize every time we started talking about your comic, we went off on a tangent.
We do. I do tend to do that sometimes too.
So we'll wrap it up. Wow, we've been talking for almost 2.5 hours. I usually keep these to an hour, but we're having a good conversation. So I just wanted to address this. I'm obviously wrong because people like Deadpool and Gambit, and those names are. The name Gambit is good, but if your name is Gambit, you should have powers that are like luck-based or skill-based or risk-based, not throwing kinetic energy around. It makes no sense.
Well, he has the playing cards.
I know, but his power is because he can walk up to a wall and charge the wall and have the wall explode. He doesn't need the cards. He just because he, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't. The cards are just like, it's cool. But then again, Rob Liefeld is a 12-year-old. Still to this day, he hasn't developed. And Deadpool is just, and then the worst offender is Cable. But everybody loves those characters, so I'm obviously wrong. But
I guess you are.
What's that?
I said, I guess you are.
I guess I'm wrong. Yo, Pixel Traders here. How you doing? So we'll close down now. I Next Evolution, I really liked it. I love the premise. I think it's an important premise. Pharmaceuticals shooting up people with drugs. And obviously I didn't read the whole story yet, so I don't know. Is it a mistake? Is it something sinister? Is it a conspiracy? We don't know. I'd love to find out all that stuff. And how long do you plan on going with this comic?
I'm thinking about 7 issues. I've got the script for issue 4 written. I just need to give it one more read through before I hand it over to Martin. We took a little bit of a hiatus there, but thinking 7 issues, possibly an 8, depending on how the writing will go.
Okay, and that's it, and that's a final. That's the end of the story. Then your next comic will be something completely different.
I'm thinking so, yeah, because I feel like this is a very beginning, middle, end story.
Right.
We don't need sequels. I don't need to bring in super space mutants. Skylar doesn't need to put on some spandex and fight Godzilla. It's a very grounded story that has a beginning,
Right.
middle, end, and I think it should stay that way.
Yeah, it's not a superhero story. It's like an action thriller kind of
Yeah,
story. Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. I agree. I think it would be an amazing ending, and then you know let it rest on its morals, which I think is something a lot of comics should do. I have an ending for my comics. I'd like that ending to be in the far future. You know what I mean? Like, if I
Yeah.
would like it to be 50 issues, but if it's only 4 issues, it's only 4 issues. You know, that's up to you, the viewers. So I got nothing else to say, and I'm starting to talk nonsense because I'm very sleepy. So on that note, thanks a lot, Heather. Come back whenever you want. I'm gonna back. I just don't want to do it live. I did that once before, and it's not good. It's not good to give your credit card information out live.
No, it's not very good at all.
Not very good at all. So thanks a lot, everybody. See you. And tomorrow night I have Phil Diaz on at midnight. Right? It's tomorrow, Phil Diaz. Yes, it is. Somebody was talking about Phil Diaz in the chat. He'll be here tomorrow night at midnight or 11:59. That way I don't screw up the dates. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Night.
Good night. Thanks a lot. Come back whenever you want.
All right, I'll come back when you have a better schedule.
Yep, I know. I don't like it either. I don't like it either. I'm amazed we have this many people watching. Bye-bye, everybody.